right? So these are the blueprints that literally form by their phasing, their sparking, their currents interacting with each other, form the sparks that make the density level, the next manifestation of the density level. The second breath would create it expand out from the center, create the D12.5. It's D12.5 up here, but when you get down here to the bottom of the Cathara grid, you don't have your 12 here. You've got your number 1 Cathara center, and that would come in at 0.5. Just like this is right above the 12 Cathara center, this would be right below the 1. So that would be at 0.5. So you have your Logos sphere running at 12.5 to 0.5, another sphere of energy. That sets the template for the D12 sphere of energy that is your divine blueprint sphere, your Christos sphere. Right? On the third exhale, of the pillar, you would get at 11.5, between 11.5 and 1.5 down here. That's between 1 and 2 here, and between 12 and 11 there. Here is another point. This is where the photosphere forms. Now, each of these levels of the sphere has a different job to do in relation to bending and moving light and sound currents into forming density currents, which fortunately we don't have to cover right now, but possibly in Cathara 4. This forms the template this is the etheric template for the, between 11 and 2 is the trion field, the trion light field that we've talked about in the radial body structure. And this is before you get density radial bodies, actually. This is the full, these are the ones that set if you look at the whole crystal body structure, these are the radial body levels of the crystal body structure itself. Then you get the smaller density level ones inside of that each follow that same pattern. Okay? So at the third exhale, you get the 11.5 and the 1.5 sphere, Logos sphere, and its manifestation of the D11 to 2 trion field. On the fourth exhale, you get the 8.5, you get 8.5 and 4.5 etheric template. This is called the Ovos sphere. And that is the template for the Miage field that runs between 8 and 5 in the radio body structure. Then on the fifth of the fifth expansion, it creates this. There's a little circle around here, I believe, and that's called the Huvos sphere. And this is where it gets absolutely nuts. The next diagram. It's from this little center here that we end up with a replication of the Matrodon into a tiny version of itself called the Nadradon. And this is where we get the density bodies manifesting. So soon we'll see how we got to the fifth and we got the formation. We already got through the lotosphere, the logosphere, the photosphere, the ovosphere, and now the huvosphere, which is what begins the densification process into the huva bodies. Next one, please. Which one did I put out? Oh, yeah, that's that one. That was the one I was working on. There was a new one they threw at me today before we came downstairs. So the huvosphere forms here, which is like a core little sphere that gives the etheric imprint for what becomes these that actually expand outward through the etherics and form the density levels. Now, from the huvosphere, the little tiny thing in there, which is at the Azure level, right, that center point level, there's a projection of a replica of the Matrodon, and it comes down here between 1.5 on the Cathara. If the Cathara, I didn't leave the Cathara in here with all its spheres, but just so we could see the egg-shaped capsules. But down here, there between 1.5 and 0.5, there's another seal that forms. This set of seals, right, this would be on the fifth one that this one formed, on the fifth expansion, and its little sphere around it. And on the sixth expansion, the sixth day of creation, this down here was created. And that is one that runs between 1.5 and 0.5. These altogether, these 6 seals, are the... what? Wait a minute. I know there's 7. Where is it? Well, I just said, you do know there's 7. I said, yeah, I know. I don't know where it is, though, yet. The first 6 days of creation are the formation of the structures of the bodies, all the way down from the lotus sphere, all the way down into the point where you get here, where that last 6th one creates what's called the nadradon, or the nodosphere, or the nadial capsule, if you want to call it that. This is the imprint that allows the same expansion to take place with smaller versions of the ethos and eros templates to form the density spheres that become, first there are 5 of them set. Then each of these take on the replicate of the whole, where each density level becomes like a microcosm of this whole structure. But this is where, from I can never get that word out, nadradon, which is the replica of the matradon, but it's put down here, and it's in this seal between 0.5 and 1.5 in relation to the PCM Cathara grid. That is like the first Manu window. That is the point of interface between the larger currents of the etheric bodies and the density levels of the crystal body, and the smaller little like single density levels of the body. So from the nodosphere, you can call it a nodosphere. These what are they? Egg-shaped capsules. But I'm listening to Ma. He's chuckling at me because none of this was translated before. They just gave me this diagram right before we came down. They had me draw these eggs in. And what are they? They're the templates for the Hoofa bodies. Oh, okay. Right. So from this little one here that comes out at the 6th day of creation, right, or 6th breath, notice on each of those creation days you ended up with a set of seals. All right. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That implies there's 2 more someplace. 7 of these control the densities, though, don't they? Anyway, he said don't go into that yet. We'll get into that in K4, but don't confuse myself now. All right. But these are etheric seals. They're part of what's called the etheric duct system. They're literally crystalline structures that form in the central vertical current at the D13 to D13.5 level. And they lock in the different levels of the bodies. They create... They separate, let's say, the frequencies of the etheric bodies into smaller versions of the entire etheric body structure. So you get a density 1 etheric body that runs between these 2 seals. You get a density 2 that runs between this one and that center seal. And they all have in common that they are connected through into this nadradon cell. All right? So this is the density cell. This is the cell that's half in density and half in etheric. And it's through that nadradon cell that the etheric currents that are generated, the spark currents that are generated in the pillar of power, interface directly to become atomic currents. And if there's anything wrong with that nadradon cell, it will directly affect what manifests as your atomic currents and what can manifest as matter, literally. So first, these create, through the nadradon, it's created the density 1, density 2, density 3, density 4, and density 5 etheric blueprints. These are actually the capsules that you will see in people like when Barbara Brennan, in that she's very talented as far as seeing what is there. And when she shows you the etheric body levels, what she is seeing are actually the density 1 harmonics, subharmonics of these body levels. We're going to get into the whole structure of these at some point because there's certain things that you can see in them now that isn't supposed to be there, and there's certain ways that they're functioning that they're not supposed to be functioning. They're functioning that way because of the distortions in this particular cell. This is a little cell. It is actually a cell in every living and manifest thing. It's not just living things have this. Actually, all things are living things, even if they forgot and even if we don't know it. Everything has its version of the control cell, the nadradon cell, which is the replica and the direct connection to the rest of the crystal body and to the matradon cell. So everything has this. For us, for humans, it's located in the base of the tailbone, in the coccyx. It's a little duct in the little ball at the end of the coccyx. There's a little duct there that sometimes manifests physically. And it's literally, that's the connection point, the first point between the pillar of power and it bringing those frequencies of spark currents into the body for rejuvenation. There's a whole bunch of other smaller seals that connect all the way up through the body system, through the lotus points. There's a whole interface system once it gets through that cell point. But that cell point is key. And if there's something wrong with that cell point, it cuts off the pillar of power and it makes it so we can't run the frequencies. That would be bad enough if it was just that it was cut off. But there has been something done here to the planetary grids, to the galactic grids, etc., that have created a condition with this, a buckyball condition with this, where it has taken the natural structure of those seals, twisted them, broken the ethos grid, as I'd explained before, and literally plugged the ethos and eros reverse currents in together to create something called the yin-yang flow, which is not natural. There's something called the yan-yun flow that is natural, that we'll see in a little bit. We'll see where lotus points are directly connected to the electromagnetic fields of the body and of the planet. And you know when you see those pictures of the planet with the magnetosphere and its funny tail and all that kind of stuff, this is all connected to the shape of that. That we call the poison apple, because that is the manifestation. Physically, it's known by science. That is the manifestation of the net harness field that's created by the twisting of this. They are not natural magnetic fields that are holding, the Earth's grids. That is not a natural structure at all. And it's not just around the planet. It's at each level, each dimensional level of the planet. It means it's around your molecules, it's around your atoms as well. So we'll see that. I'm going to try to do this quick because I want to, we're running out of time and I want to get you to the key parts. But this is where we're going to learn much more about the Huva structures and how they form. There's a lot more coming in K4. But some of the most important things are coming when we see this in relation to the magnetic fields and into the planet. Next one, please. Hey. Oh, yeah. This is just to give you an idea of how, remember we had the Talia sphere, or the Talia tiles, 60 of them, that were formed in the light grid when we were doing the templates? Okay. When the Matrodon cell and its little counterpart, Nadrodon cell, do their phasing, every one of the Talia also phase. All right? So you have this whole sphere of energy that's doing the little phasing, each one of them having a little tiny pillar of power, except tiny compared to, it's one of these that are the 500 to 700,000 miles in diameter, one of them, right? Right. So, and that's in a human crystal body structure. So, anyway, these each have their own little pillars of power. Okay, they're little Cathara grids. It implies they have their etheric counterpart and their eros counterpart, and so there's more spheres within spheres within spheres. These form a sphere itself that would be called the Talia sphere. The Talia sphere is part of the structure. Each of those things that we talked about, the lotus sphere, the logosphere, the photosphere, the ovosphere, the hoovosphere, all those guys, they would each have this structure of these Talia would form their Talia sphere with the lines. You'd have your axiom lines, and which would be the ones carrying the eros, and you would have your meridian lines carrying the ethos. And these form, next one please. So each level of these spheres has a Talia level. All right, so it has a Talia level. Yeah. These were not fun to draw, by the way. Right. They're still not perfect as far as how perfect I'd like them to be, but they're close enough. So if you would take that flat map of the Talia screen and put it three-dimensionally, you would get this. You'd have your 5 shields. You'd have ethos, density 1, density 2, density 3, density 4, right? So you'd have those. They create, running between them, right? You have these lines, your axiom lines. See these guys? They're these. Right? Then you have your meridian lines that run this way. They run this way. Then you have these little lovelies, which form the meiotic diotic grid, where you have deep down inside of that sphere, you have your pillar of power, right? You have your interior 24 lotus points that are pulling energy from the pillar of power and sending them outward somewhere. They're sending them out through these and out to the next level of the bodies and out to the next level of the body. So each level of the body has a whole set of this. Like this is all actually one. I'm just showing you the various parts of what a Taliya sphere is. And all of those spheres are Taliya spheres. Okay. This shows you that each one of them has arcs, which means they phase. Right? Every one of the little arcs and every one of the little Taliyas and every one of the levels phases and creates spark currents. All these spark currents connect into that nadradhan cell and send and combine with the spark currents from the central pillar, from the pillar of power. And this is how the perpetual currents of atomic structure are created on each density level. So this is just part of the anatomy that we'll be going into in K4. Next one, please. I'm going to have to speed this up really fast. Okay. No, I'm not doing too bad, actually. That was a very slow 5 minutes. Good. All right. Now, if we want to look at it this way, remember, there's lots of those little spheres with all the pretty little patterns all over them, right? Each level, you have that at the the 13.5, the 12.5, the 11.5, the 8.5 levels, right, all the way down in the little nada one, down at the 1.5 to 0.5 level. On the exhale of the pillar, when the pillar expands, it takes all those things, all those levels, those huva levels, those little oval-shaped bodies that form between the etheric cells, and expands them out and literally forms the densities. So the density stack of your density shields, they're actually, you have shield 1, or ethos shield, then 1, density 2, density 3, density 4. There's your 4 densities. There are your 4 bodies, 4-body system, and your ethos body, which will give you your 5th. That's your interface into your primal, the 13 through 15 thing. You have your pillar that will be running down the center. Now, when the pillar contracts, all of those actually go up into one, into the center. So literally, all of your density cells are going expanding out beyond you, and they're going expanding back into you. So you're never very far away from yourself at all. And you're never very far away from the center of the Eka base shield, because you're actually existing within it and just expanding and contracting within it. Your whole fields are doing this, expanding and contracting within it. On the expansion phase, when everything goes and comes out, and of course there's one going this way for the parallel one, right? Next, what these do next, this is where I kind of get tired. This shows you, this just gives you an idea of their radial fields, right? They have their trion field level, they have their D12 rayon field level of their radial body. So each one of them are a radial body, which implies each one of them has that structure that we just saw on the big level going down inside of them. And this all happens as it expands, right? Flash on, pew, there it is, all of this, all at once, right? Like in the 6 increments, if you have the and you flashed all of this on. But at the same time, all of these are expanding out. You have all of these flashing on, because these disappear too. It all literally disappears. When it goes into full compaction and disappears into the loda, it's gone. It doesn't exist anymore. It comes back on the next exhale, which means we all and everything disappears in between our moments of perception, which is really interesting. Anyway, next one, please. This is where it gets wacky. While all that stuff is happening simultaneously, when they expand out, so do these things. Because as they're expanding out, all these little density lotus arc sets are transmitting. They have outgoing transmitting lines. All right, you have the pillar of power running up the center, the lotus points taking energy from the pillar of power and blending it with the transmission lines that are going out through each of the little lotus arc sets. They connect with each other and they hit at 90-degree angles. They form meiotic and dodic points at the primary 12 lotus points. Then you have your secondary lotus points, I'll show you in a minute, that form over here. That's where you get your 24 PCM lotus points. So you get this grid, this crosshatch grid. This is called the harmonics grid, or the diamond skin grid, natural diamond skin grid. This is the beginning of the process of the energy expanding from the inside of the pillar on the exhale, expanding from the inside of the pillar, coming through the lotus points and moving outward toward where? To the next level, which takes you into Showing you the next level of the lotus points. Your 24 here. You have the 12, and then you have another set of 12 that form this way. So you have 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, plus the 12 running this way. So these, from your inner pillar, there's this next set of 12 and 12 lotus points that take the energy out further. Then outside that, there's this next set of 12 and 12. These are the crossover points, where those energy frequencies that are coming out from the inner pillar through the inner lotus points are crossing through each other on their way out. All right? They're creating meiotic-diotic vortice points at each point that they do, which means they're splitting current every time they do. So they're creating an outflow, and the fact that they crash into each other, the outflow continues, but it also creates a backflow. So there's backflow currents flowing from each of these levels back into the seed atoms. This creates a massive circulation of energy. So you have 24, you have your inner pillar 24 lotus points. Then you have these 24 lotus points, the 12 here and the 12 here in this shape. Then you have another 24 set of them here that connect to the lodum, and they blend frequencies from the antiparticle side, from the lodum. And then you have another set of 24 around here that connect directly to the lota. So those inner lotus points that we're using connect directly on a set of lines called the radius lines that literally circulate energy back and forth through all of these levels of crossover points out into the lota and back again, through the lodum, into the lota and back again, when things are operating naturally. Next one, please. Boy, am I going to have to move through those electromagnetic ones fast. Just thinking how many of them there are. All right. Anyway, now, as if that wasn't enough, this is all happening on the on flash, right? This all goes, there it is on the on flash. The next level, you have those diagonals, that your harmonics grid, right? When these things crash into each other, you have, first of all, you have the frequency coming out from the inner pillar through the inner 12 of the inner 24 PCM lotus points that you don't see on here. Then you have the outer ones, the outer 24 points. Energy's going out, but it's crashing into each other and created the backflow. The backflows crash into each other too. When the backflows crash into each other, they create, throwing out at another angle, the horizontals and verticals that form what's called the octaves grid. So this octaves grid, these are all step-down grids that take energy from the axiotonal and meridian line level and circulate it through between the pillar of power on the inside and the axiom and meridian lines on the outside levels of the crystal body. These create an open circulation through the lotus points between each of those levels, and they create different angles of energy running grids. You have the diagonals coming through from the original outgoing from the pillar points where they were crashing through each other and creating a backflow. Now the backflows are running into each other on the way back through the same points, and they're shifting and creating the horizontals and verticals. If they're coming back in this way and they crash into another one coming back in that way, they shift and create another one at this angle. So you end up with grids running this way and that way. These become like the ley line grids in a planetary body. So all of these levels create the electromagnetic fields of the body, but the core electromagnetic field that's created through them is called the Yanyan flow. Now, we've dealt with this before in terms of a shield stance, which means we've talked about it in terms of understanding it as a pattern that manifests in the shield on a horizontal level. But it is also a natural three-dimensional, well, not just three-dimensional, but height, width, and depth level, of whatever you want to call that. On multidimensional levels, it's an electromagnetic field. I'll show you for a second what all these things together look like. Can I show? Yeah. Okay, let me see. I'm going to have to hyperspace through this section. I'm going to do this one on. I'll do the. Yeah. Wait, let me see what's in it. Yeah, the paper doesn't say the same thing as the other thing does. Yeah, I'm not going to go through I can do this. This can easily go. These first couple pages can easily go on Friday because they're more about the phasing of the light. Yeah, I'll wait on those. I'll wait on that. Yeah, we'll take it right to here, to the yin. Yeah, okay. All right, I'm going to whip through these first couple. Can you get to that page? They're not numbered, so it's just by look. What was fun was we had... Did I do that? If I did, how did I do that? Right? What'd I do? Anyway, what I'm going to do is there's a certain section in here that has to do with a bit of what we've gone over before on the phasing, the 30 degrees on Atelia, the 0 point F on Atelia and pop off into the Atelia thing. We can talk about that when we talk more about the breathing, when we do the technique stuff on Friday. What I want to do is get you right into the Yin flow, and so you can understand what this has to do with electromagnetic fields. Because if you can understand this structure in relation to the crystal body itself, you'll be able to understand it in relation, at least enough, in association with the planetary electromagnetic fields, and it also applies to your personal electromagnetic fields. You'll see where the lotus points fit in relation to those. Do we know where we are?
Not yet.
No?
Keep going.
Wait a minute. Let me see that. No. Yes. Right there. Right there and thereafter. Yeah, like put those where they don't get mixed up. Because I'll never do that sequence again. I'll never find it again. I don't know how I found it in the first place. We had all of these in sections, but we had no idea how the sections went together. At like 2 o'clock today? Oh, okay. Where do we start with this? Now, anyway, this takes us real quick. These are going to be real quick ones, sweetie. Okay, they go with those, yeah. There we go. This is just a reminder of when we begin to get information on the Ayanyane flow, which is it was in preparation for the Hitharo and the Hithalam periods when we were starting to understand what that stuff was about. It was about the shield flow patterns, where you have the electrical flow pattern. It's hard to see on this one. There's better ones after this. That comes down from the top clockwise and cuts over this way and goes back out the top. Comes down from the top, circulates through the bottom, always clockwise, and then back up. And then there's a magnetic that comes up from the bottom, goes up to the top, counterclockwise, and back out. Now, there's another. Do the next sec, please. And I want to go through these quick, please. Like these guys, just so I get like real quick. What these are they're called the Shield of the Ark of the Covenant codes when they're in relation to the shield stands. But what they do, you're going to see, is really interesting. Now, this one is called the Azur-Yan or the Yan code. That is the male one. It has to do with frequency coming down, and it's actually from the 11.5 point, electrical frequency coming in clockwise, and it actually comes clockwise, and back out that way. And that's connected to the top electrical Merkaba field. Right? Next one, please. Yep. This one is the magnetic one. It's the Ashayon, or the Yun. Right? It comes up from the bottom, counterclockwise, and continues counterclockwise, and goes back out the bottom. Now, these are right in the Kathara grids, all right? So it comes up from 1.5, right, between 1 and 2 here, and it comes up counterclockwise, over and up to through the seed atom at the Azure. Yeah, we need to put that up a little. Yeah. Get hyperspaced. Over to 9, through to 6, counterclockwise still, over to 7, over to 10, down again, and back out at this angle. So these are shield stands, which means they're imprints for energy flow patterns. They're ways energy flows through the shields. But as we learned before, anything that's flat on the shields, when those vector vortices start projecting things upward, they become three-dimensional with height, width, and depth. So these flows become the core of what are called our electromagnetic fields. They are the core etheric flows that create the electromagnetic fields in any body or any planet. Next one, please. When you put them together in the shield, they look like this. And this was the code that was used to... this is actually an encryption that does a bypass on some of the blockages that were here. The actual flow itself, you have the yan, or electrical, coming down from the top clockwise, over down to 3, missed the numbers there, 3, up to 6, over to 7, down to 4, and back up through and back out again at 11.5. And you have the yun, or the magnetic flow, coming up from the bottom counterclockwise, up through, cuts through the center, over to 9, down to 6, cross through the center rod, over to 7, up to 10, then back down and out at 1.5. They're the natural flows, the yan-yun flow. The Yanyun shield stands are the template through which the Yanyun flow takes place. And the Yanyun flow is what creates the electromagnetic fields, and I'll show you that in a minute. This was a bypass that allows for a connection between these that actually sidesteps around some of the distortion that was there, so we were able to activate the Yanyun flow in the shields to begin this process. Now, can you go to the next one, please? Oh, we don't need that one even. Yeah, that's just more on the same stuff that we've seen before. Now we want to go right into the flows themselves, because I don't want to hang people up here. How am I doing? 8 minutes. Okay, all right. Yeah, that one. This was in the dance floor program. It just shows you the Yanyun flows, this lovely little butterfly-esque type field running here, from the antiparticle one, or the low tie in the pKa universe, and our low tum one. So you have one set of Yanyun going with the with the partic level, and one set going with the particum grid. Won't even get into the ethos and eros ones right now because they're there too. But this is showing you the basic flow pattern. Next one, please. Wait a minute. Let me see if that's the next one. That shouldn't be the next one. Let me see. Yeah, I want to see why they got there. There's a reason why I had these two before that one. Okay, now, we're going to keep those in mind, the shield stands in mind for a minute. Go back to this, the pillar of power. It's this next to that. They don't like each other. All right. All right. If we keep in mind the Yanyun flow, and remember this again, which is the Cathara grid with its pillar of power and those inner 24 lotus points, right? Just keep those things in mind with each other. All right. And we keep that in mind with the density and dimensional embedded Cathara grids. All right, just keep those pieces in mind together. Next one, please. This is what we end up with when we begin to have the Yanyun flow become a three-dimensional structure. Right. You have, and this when we get into particulars, this shows which ones are coming from the one from the antiparticle side. For you have a Yanyun flow, you have the electricals here from our particum side coming down clockwise over this way, and back out there at 11.5. You have that's our Yan flow. Our Yun flow comes up this way counterclockwise over to 9, rides the rod over to 7, goes up to 10, and comes back out and goes down out at the 1.5 level. Now this is our North Pole and our South Pole, right? And this would be our west and our east if this was the planet, right? These are showing the basic flows. Now you take that flow and you realize too that you have the antiparticle set coming through from the low tie, and the low tie is embedded grid with ours. The low tie's top would be top there and bottom there, except their top is magnetic, right? So they'd have their magnetics coming in this way and running up this way. So they're running on the horizontal while we're running on the, they're running on the horizontal while we're running on the vertical, right? So you get this double impact set of flows. You get one on the density level. This is just for one density level, okay? Then you get the D3 level one, the D2, and the D1 level one. These are the primary electromagnetic etheric flow currents that they generate the magnetic fields, the electrical and magnetic fields that are supposed to be around and within living body forms of any kind, be it a planet or a person or a tree. Next one, please. I need to go through these fast, but it'll give the basic idea. In simpler terms, if we take all that stuff away so we can just see what the heck that flow looked like, it looks like this. This is just one density level of it. This is not showing the D3, D2, and D1. This is just showing like one density level or the flow itself, wherever you put it on a Cathara grid. Okay. You have your one set of electricals, coming down, circling around, and going back out the top, and your one set of magnetics. These are on the vertical grid, right? Then the other set of them are coming in from the antiparticle side. Yeah, and going back out that way. and coming in. Electricals coming in this way. This gets interesting when you put it on the physical body, because right here is what shows you what side of the brain should be receiving which current. Where, in the Particum universe, on your right side, you should be receiving electricals, and on your left side, you should be receiving magnetics. Right now, through the brain. I mean, it changes once it gets in, once you see there's the step down, D1, D2, D3. But this is the basic flow pattern that's supposed to happen. We're going to get more into that into the Cathara 4, by the way, because there's 3 levels of this on each density level. You have your density system, and then you have the next step down. And if you notice, you have currents this way, and then the smaller ones coming in this way. These are both electrical, and these are electromagnetic. So there's, when you put 3 Cathara grids together to give you your D1, D2, D3 inside of this, it shows you some interesting things about where flows are supposed to change over and what flows are supposed to be going through. But basically the problem we have on a physical level right now is that the currents are reversed as they're coming in, where we end up with the electrical on the wrong side and the magnetic on the wrong side as it enters the brain. And that creates complete distortion in the way the brain itself works. But that's Cathara 4 stuff. This is about planets. Okay. All right. This shows you it in relation to where the little spheres are, where those Cathara grids would be. I just left the Cathara centers so we could see, because you get so many lines on here that you can't see what lines you're trying to look at. So this shows you the density flow with the density Cathara centers. And then there's the dimensional ones. This would be the D3. Then you'd have the D2 level ones and the little tiny D1 level. Each one of those would have a flow like this, right? Next one, please. What that would look like would be this. So that would be one density's worth, one density in its 3 dimensions worth of natural flow. And these are the etheric currents that move through from the pillar of power through the lotus points and out into manifestation. They lose through the lotus points on the vertical, and the ones that are back flowing create the electromagnetic etheric flow that, as they rub against each other, create what we call the manifest atomic flow that creates the electromagnetism that's around any and within any body. So we'd have our D1 level, our atomic level, our elemental level, which would be atomic molecular. We have our D3 atmospheric level. We have our D4 density level. This would be the void space around the fields. These are all the fields that would comprise natural magnetic fields of a planet or a person. Next one, please. Okay, that's just showing them without the little balls. So you can just see the fields themselves, okay, without the Cathara centers, without the signets showing. But that is the basic flow, and that's just one. Remember, there's 4 densities, and those 4 densities are part of that whole bigger crystal body thing, so there's lots of levels of these, but these are the primary flows of that generate electromagnetism through all of those flows that came from the central pillar of power outward through the lotus points into the radius lines, and then the natus lines, which were the ones that came back in, and the backflow currents that ran horizontal and vertical. Boy, there's so many pieces to this anatomy. It's like trying to count the bones in your foot. All right, this is showing the flow in relation to it's showing the Yan-Yun flow, which is called the Yan-Yun flow, in relation to the matrodon seed atom, and your ethos and eros and parallel eros and parallel ethos fields. That's showing the main flow of your density grid in relation to it. Now, each one of those has its own version of that too. So there's lots of these currents and cross currents running. Next one, please. I'm almost afraid to look. Yeah, what is this one? Unit flow into a cell and the Lodi pillar of power. This one's just showing on top of all of that the pillar of power and its lotus points in relation to that. Each of these lines comes out through the lotus points. I think it might show on the next one. Yeah. This makes it all easier to look at. Right. Look at where those 24 PCM lotus points intersect. There's stuff going through each one of them. These are the lines of the Yan-Yun flow, the etheric and combined, not just the etheric lines, but also the things they create, the electromagnetic lines they create, flow through the lotus points. These are flowing through on the density level. These ones are handling the D3 ones. There's ones down here that are circulating the D2 ones. There's ones down here that are circulating the D1 ones. So all of those lotus points that we're working with are controlling the flows of the electromagnetism all the way through the entire body structure. And that is controlling the flow of from the pillar of power at the center, how those currents are being brought into manifestation in the body. And all that happens through that little point called the Nadradhan that's at the base of the tailbone, which is actually off planet, down south a bit, when you look at it on a planetary level. So we'll see that in a minute. I hope. More of those, oh Lord. Yeah, flow, lotus points, and the hundreds. Yeah, this is just showing the cell, the matrodon cell, the big matrodon cell, in relation to the lotus points, in relation to all the lotus flows, and the crystals that the matrodon forms, that kind of thing. He's just showing you how these pieces fit together in relation to each other. Next one, please. Okay. This is to remind us of, once upon a time, we learned that we had stair-step density vortices that ran down the center of our pillar, right? Ran down the center. They came from way back when the Lodi lines formed from the nodes transmitting their vertical lines, and part of them polarized outside and formed the light body on the outside structure, and the other part polarized inside and formed the inner vortices that ran between the shields. Now, these have a relationship with the pillar of power and the rest of it. Yes. We have our electromagnetic field flow, we have our lotus points, we have our pillar of power running between them, we have our capstone spinning because all of this breathes, and as it breathes, and it blows energy to the capstones, and the capstones spin, and they communicate energy outward, and they also draw energy inward, and it's a whole big, beautiful flow. And of course, you have capstones going that way too on the rod. Next one, please. Kind of looks like that, but it's a lot prettier when it's made of light instead of ink. So you have your pillar of power going this way. You have the one that's actually formed not only by the loti in the antiparticle, but also by your own primal, our PCM primal fields also run the same rod currents. So you've got a spin, 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 right? Spin, spin, spin happening. Right? That is our go-kart of fire. Right? Remember, there's ones coming through this way and this way that are more of these, more of the pillars, more of the, this is the whole process of how atoms and things are manufactured through the spark pulse currents that come up through the pillar of power from the center and expand outward, then come back inward. And it's actually very, very beautiful, but it's extremely hard to describe sometimes. Next one, please. Oh no, sometimes one breath is easier. I'm not even going to touch that. That's showing it all in the, oh yeah, that's showing it all. Here's capstones in context of the matrodon, that little tiny cell at the center of the Eka base shield, right? Yeah. Well, that's your whole go-kart of fire in the center of the matrodon that's at the center of the Eka base shield, which is bigger, right? This stuff is big. This universes are inside this stuff. This stuff is massive. That's why the physicists will think I'm absolutely a lunatic. You know? Oh, big is big. It can't be that big. Yes, it can. Right? Oy. So, chariot of fire would have your capstones here, here, here. It also have capstones here, here, and here. Some of them are actually double. You have 4 lotum capstones from the loti and the loti. Yes. You have 4 Eka capstones that would go with the Eka grid. Then you have 4 parallel Eka capstones that would run the same way as these, but actually the top would be here, here, and the sides would be here, because our Eka's top is here, and its bottom's here, and its sides are there. So you'd have the 12 capstones, or the 12 wheels of the chariot of fire. And that's what's the natural breathing organism. That is the living organism of what it means to be a living organism in a natural crystic system. Every organism would have this crystal body structure in a natural crystic system. In fact, every being lives within it, whether or not you're a free radical roaming around until you self-destruct, or you happen to be online with the rest of the healthy cells of the system. And we can look at things that fall as free radicals that broke off from whatever the natural cell structure was. They do damage to other neighboring cells around them, but eventually they burn themselves out because they don't have the ability to do, let's say, chemical or electromagnetic process on their own. So they don't have the ability to sustain life on their own because they can't spark. What we're doing is getting back the ability to spark. Real quick on a planetary level, what does this look like? I gotta go fast. They're gonna make people late for dinner. I don't want to make them late for their dinner. What? There's gotta be more. There's another pile right there, sweetie. Yeah. Oop. Yeah. Faster than the speed of freight. Yep. Thank you. Now, somewhere in there's a planet. All right, remember the yin flow, the natural flow of, this is only one density level again, right, where you're showing the density and the three-dimensional levels of the yin flow, electromagnetic fields. In here you see a Merkaba. Inside that Merkaba you do see a Cathara grid if you look really hard. And if you look even harder, inside that Cathara grid you see a planet that looks like Earth. Okay? That's Earth in there. It'd be lovely to do these in color so you could at least know where the blue water and the yellow continents were. That meant solid land, right? I won't even get into it yet. There's another level that shows which level's Earth's core, which is the mantle, which is the surface, which is the inner atmosphere, which is the outer atmosphere, which is the magnetosphere. That there's a whole level of graphs to go with that, but we didn't have time to do those, and it's not that important to understand. The basic concept of what we're doing is where this is a natural flow that's supposed to be happening on the planet. That's the flow that's connected to, next please, to the natural planetary capstones that are supposed to be there and functioning. This is all that stuff about, yeah, the New Age stuff is wild. Oh, the capstones, this capstone. They don't tell you what the capstones are. They tell you they're good. They tell you they're needed, but they don't tell you what they are. They do tell you that there's many kinds of capstones, and you can do all sorts of different geomancies with them and different shapes of geometric relationships on top of them. And yes, especially when you do buckyballs, what you do is get capstones that fall down black holes without totally imploding. But naturally, capstones are supposed to look like this because they plug in that electromagnetic flow directly into the vertical and horizontal currents that connect directly to the crystal body of the particle universe, the antiparticle universe, the lota, echolota, and its parallel system. And it's all supposed to be a very happy, living, breathing system. Next one, please. There'll be more on these too at some point. These are just real rough ones they were throwing at me at the end here. Now, if we look at our solar system, and everybody's got their capstones doing what they're supposed to be doing, you've got lines of frequency. For one, you have the rods themselves, the capstones on the rods. You have the east rods, they're positive. They're supposed to transmit out positive current and draw in negative current, and vice versa on the west rod. You have the vertical ones. They're supposed to be sending out frequency. They send out positive. The top ones send out positive, and it's picked up by the bottom ones of the neighboring planets. There's this whole arcing system between planet 12 to 11 to 10 to 9 to 8 to 7 to 6 to 5, all the way back down to the sun, and from the sun all the way up, from planet 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way out. It's a living, breathing communication system. Solar systems should expand and contract naturally too, where they should be on the same plane with each other. You shouldn't have the 12th planet orbit someplace out there at this angle in relation to everything else like you do right now. You shouldn't have Uranus laying on its side, and you shouldn't. I'm sure. And you shouldn't have Earth's pole shifted at 23.5 degrees and 11.5 degrees, which is really hard to do unless you really try hard. You don't usually get two different pole shifts out of one planetary body, which is what has happened here. Next one, please. Almost done. That would be how the natural magnetic fields, electromagnetic fields, should be moving through the spiral, the galactic spiral, the solar system spiral. And our galaxy, or our solar system, should be in relation to the galactic spiral in the same way. It's supposed to be an open, living communication, but that's not what's going on in this universe, in this particularly this particular galaxy. Next one, please. And in relation to this planet. what we've got is a mess. Yeah. This was a really quick one. This is where they showed me what was messed up where in the Cathara grid level. All right. If our sun has its natural axis here, right? Our natural axis here, where our capstones would be this way, but that's not the way Earth is tilted. Earth is tilted over here. Its whole Merkaba is tilted over here. That's your 23.5 degree axis. That actually gives you an orbital around what should have been its normal axis, and that gives you the precession of the equinoxes. That's not a natural configuration. It also gives you the ecliptic, which is this shield here that's not meant to be tilted at that angle. It should be a horizontal shield that follows the rod. If your shield is tilted, it implies your rod is tilted. So a rod is tilted in a way that it doesn't pick up the natural transmissions that are coming through the solar spirals, and that actually cuts off the frequencies of the rod. So they're not arcing in the way they're supposed to. It's changing the electromagnetic fields from that little butterfly effect to something else we'll see. If that weren't bad enough, we've got something else going on down here, and this is what we're here to fix. Now, this mess down here, if I can explain this, it'll be a miracle. You take the regular Cathara grid as it's supposed to be. I didn't even show you the reversals on numbers and half shields that are plugged into other half shields. It's not even worth going into that analysis. You don't even need it. But there's a mess here. It's actually, the rod has been split here. You have half a 7 over there with 6, half a 6 over here with 7. You have the 3s and 4s reversed. You have 5 pulled down into your Iumbi. You have 8 pulled down into your Azure. It's a real mess. And this is 2/3 of the template. But there's 1/3 that still holds the original. And that's why we can bond it to the base shield of the Eka and regenerate it. And that's what's happening. What happens down here? And it was really hard because they were drawing it really fast. At some point we'll have clear graphs on this. But down here, now this is at the, this is where you would naturally have, you have your Cathara Center 1. This is where your ethos would start, right? You'd naturally have ethos, but it would be on this axis, and it still is. You'd have your ethos grid here, and you'd have your eros grid there, right? Normally your planet should be aligned with them that way, and the pillar of power should cycle right up and down through the planet, and you'd be sparking, and your planet would be alive. It would be broadcasting back and forth through the other planets. It wouldn't be on quarantine like it is here. But what has happened with this pole shift? First, you have the 23.5 degree pole shift. That 23.5 degree shift was created by, at a certain point, the planet rod was struck. Actually, the rod and the staff were struck with frequencies that caused the eros rod, when it was halfway up into, when it was like not fully expanded, but on its way back up into contraction, to be split. It cut the eros grid in half. There's still 1/3 of the eros rod in the natural axis position, but dormant. It's been dormant for 5.5 million years. Now, the other 2/3 of it were split into 1/3 and 1/3, and what should have been a rod going this way, one of them was taken and angled this way, which means shifting of the shield. All right, the rod runs with the 3 and the 9 in the shield. The rod was pulled this way, which means the 9 position, west and east, were changed. Their natural angles were changed. And that was one part of the ethos rod. The other part was twisted to form a crossbar with it. And it literally split. The ethos rod, this rod up here, was also split in a similar way. And what this whole mess did is, first of all, with the splitting of the ethos rod, it allowed the ethos, the bottom part of the ethos Cathara grid, to bond in an unnatural way to the bottom part of the tilted PCM, planetary Cathara grid. And it allowed the top half of Shield 1 to be reversed and forced up into phase lock with the Iumbi. Now, the Iumbi frequencies, the ethos flame there, that drew Cathara Center 2, part of it, pulled it up into an unnatural configuration. This pulled 5 down. This is all electromagnetics pulling in on each other, changing the tension and the relationship between the Merkaba fields and things and the electromagnetism. So what we've got is this cluster mess here, right at the Iumbi level and a little bit below it, at the area where between 0.5, which would be down here, and 1.5, which would be here, is where you have your natural Nadradon. This is where that Nadradon control cell, that's a replica of the Matradon, would be. Right down in here is where they twisted it And right now there is a matrix that's formed by this alignment and what it does to the electromagnetics and what frequencies it unnaturally plugs into what ones that forms a buckyball matrix around and through the Nadradhan, which means the Nadradhan transmits that into every lotus point, all the way up through the pillar of power. So everything in the atomic etheric interface picks up the buckyball formation and processes the molecular structure outward through the Metatronic code and the sextant shield instead of the natural shield. Now we still have the 1/3 of the body that isn't doing this, and they're the grids we've been activating because they're the only ones that can regenerate the natural process here. What is going to be happening now? These two rods, it's called the poison pin together. It runs through one of them runs through at the 1.5 level, and the other runs through at the 2.5 level, which would be 2.5 would be between K center 2 and the Iumbi, and the 1.5 would be between K center 1 and K center 2. We're down here at the K center 1 to K center 2 1. Now K center 2 on a planetary level is the Gruol. That's Sarasota, right? Sarasota, Florida. Down here, K center 1 is the South Pole. The interface that's been used, the place where the Nadradhan is located, its main station is over in the area that we call the Yucatan Peninsula. And there's this whole grid over there that's being used to control and hold this pin in place. When we go to Chichen Itza, if I can pronounce that right, we are going to be releasing the pin. When you pull the bottom pin, it releases the top one as well. This allows for the first time the natural ethos grid that's still over here. It's going to, these guys that are off at the wrong angle, the pin that gets pulled that's holding these two together, these aren't going to disappear and get pulled out and thrown away. They're going to go back into their natural position. At least part of them will. The part that can phase bond to the natural position here. This is going to put a spin on the sextant shield, where part of it, a third of it, they're losing a third of their grids. The UIR are losing a third of their grids, thanks to the Tothians, thanks to the Adani host, because they chose to turn their grids over to the Christic mission long enough to get themselves away from the UIR, which is what they wanted. So we are this poison pin that holds this twisted split, poor little split axis that's supposed to be the rest of the rod of the ethos. And you certainly can't move that pillar up and down when it's ripped in half and its rods are twisted like that across the Iumbi area. It's going to allow these two rods to come back together in their natural order and to phase lock back into here. It'll be subsidized through the currents that are already running in the ECA base shield template that we've been using to regenerate, the shields as we have. It will regenerate the full ethos pillar. There will be a third lost, but that third will be regenerated by the heliotalics coming through. So they'll still get their third, and the UIR will still do its thing, but it'll be working on a third grids instead of 2/3 grids, which is very useful. Yeah. And we're going to replug in that pillar of power where we might not be able to take the whole Earth and shift it back, but the portion of the grids that can anchor Christos frequency. And now it will be the portion that belong to the Christos races and also those that have been claimed by the Anunnaki will go back into a natural alignment here while the other parts stay here. This ought to be interesting. It's like how to create pole shift without having pole shift, basically. It's you rotate the electromagnetic fields and the radial bodies very, very carefully if you want to keep the structural integrity of the form that's within them. So progressively, we're going to be moving 2/3 of the grids, or we're going to be, like I can say, we're going to be moving. No, we meaning the collective of Christos races. I'm not talking about you and me and Az, you know what I mean? Or even just the Yanni. I'm talking about the Christos races are going to be assisting in the process of, it's really a process of Earth realigning itself electromagnetically. We've given it the opportunity to do that by being here and by running frequency. But the Earth is choosing to do this on its own. It's going to heal itself, the parts of it that it can, and it's going to pull itself back into alignment with its capstones. And we're going to get exactly when, but the capstones are going to begin to spin. What we do we have some work to do with opening the Ra centers. There's several areas of Ra centers that we just started activating. We did the eyes of Ra. Then there's the heart of Ra, the heart of Ra, the seat of Ra, the throne of Ra, the crown of Ra, and then one more thing that has to do with the chariot of fire of Ra. And once we get those activated, then we're prepared to catch up with the Earth in its blowing its poison pin, which is going to happen when we are in Chichen Itzu. So in Belize, we're going to be working with the Ra centers and doing something to assist Earth with its Ra centers. And then on the big grid work day is the Chichen Itzu day, when Earth decides, it's almost like a, yeah, no, I won't go there, but like getting rid of something that doesn't feel good inside. Earth's going to push out its own pin. And it's going to assist us as well. We're going to be there to help absorb the frequency so it doesn't go, so the sextant shield doesn't go flying and put everything on a spin. And I do believe, just in case, there's that contingency plan that as long as we're activated to a certain level, if we weren't able to catch it before it went zing, they would be able to pull the indigo shields and some of the human shields out, if they had to. But it doesn't look like that. We would have been given warning already if there had been any, time for evac notice, and there hasn't been. So this is a good thing. But we're getting the pillar of power turned back on in ourselves, but the planet's doing it first. We're assisting the planet, and the planet's assisting us. And this is the beginning of the healing. So we'll know more by Friday about how we can breathe after that, because this releases the ability to begin to actually breathe. And this has to do with, this is where you want to know about the 6-cycle breathing. Like, okay, how many cycles of 6? What do I do with each? What do I do at the top of the inhale? What do I do at the bottom of the inhale? All that stuff, right? We're going to be given the beginnings of that, of how to use that 6-cycle breathing in order to reestablish the connection and to charge the seed atoms and to get our own capstone spinning, which ought to be really, really neat. Yeah. So it's really exciting. I hope I've been able to convey the significance of some of this. This has been a tongue twister for me. It's been a brain twister as well. But this is enough to show you. Let's see, what else did I put on there? Anything important that shows a... Oh, yeah. I can throw that up real quick. When I talk about buckyballs, this is something we got off the internet, so I will give credit to whoever is listed on there. Yeah, it's right there, whoever it is. This is a diagram of, it's not really good, but it's nice in color. It shows a buckyball. It shows the molecular structure of the, and I have this all written out someplace, I just didn't have time to incorporate it into this program, but I'd done the research on them, and there's X amount of, there's 60 carbon atoms that form the buckyball matrix. It's C60, carbon 60 molecule. All right, it's called a buckyball. It's not just carbon 60 that does this. There are etheric molecules that are like this, but this is the configuration. I mean, it's even in nature as far as being able to find it in the C60. There is one very interesting little thing that I found very interesting, and I know it's really interesting, but I don't have all the detail yet. Just so happens that the sextant clock, right? Now, there's a whole connection between the sextant clock, which is the twisted clock, the Metatronic clock in the grids. When they made its shift, they phase-locked one of the rods at what would be a little bit past the 11 o'clock position. So it made what should be the east-west 3-9 rod run 11 to 5 rod. This has to do with where the Greenwich meridian is. All right, so that's all connected. Now, that's one piece of information. The other piece of information has to do with, what is it, Greenwich Mean Time that they use as the atomic clock time. We looked up that a little bit more. What is atomic clock anyway? It has to do with some kind of the decay rate of whatever, guess what? A C60. It's one of the versions of the fullerenes that they're using as whatever scale of decay or whatever it uses. I don't even know how atomic clocks work, but it's very, very interesting that the direct connection to the fullerenes being literally one of the molecules they're using to set the atomic clocks by, when the atomic clocks are clocked into the sextant shield. And the sextant shield happens to be clocked directly into the Greenwich line, that line that starts with Greenwich. And I'm trying to get the exact coordinates to be able to show you in the shields where the sextant twist is, because if we can get that, we can find out exactly where east and west really is. We can find out where what's supposed to be in comparison to where it is right now. So there's this whole connection. But I thought the atomic clock connection was really fascinating. The fact that they use the decay rate, I believe it's the decay rate of one of the versions of the I think it's C60, isn't it directly C60? Because there's a couple of different types of C60s. From the little bit that I read, and I'm not a physicist, so I don't know all of this, but I found a very interesting correlation they are using as the the thing to time, set the atomic clock by the decay rate of one of the C60 atoms. Very interesting, weird stuff. It's all connected, but what it comes down to is C60s or not, twists or not, we do have the ability to help the Earth heal itself, and this healing cycle has begun. Once this pillar of power is turned back on, there is no stopping it. There will be a process called starburst that happens in each of the pillars after they're activated. That I'm just learning. I'm just learning about. We'll know more by Friday because they're going to give it to us in connection with understanding this breathing, this cyclic breathing of how to use your breath and your kundalini to get your pillar of power working. And there's, in the end of that, there's after a series, you don't do starburst immediately, but after a series of cycles of these 6 breaths. Now, when you talk about 6 breaths, they're actually 8 breaths. You have the 6 breaths, inhale, exhale. Then you have a 7th, Hitharo, Hithalan, or Thero, Thalan cycle, which is the acceleration cycle of the Merkabas. Then you have the reset cycle. On a bigger level, that's what we're on right now with the planetary Rushite reset cycle. So these are the cycles of the octaves going again that we talked about in different workshops. That was complex enough when you were dealing with time cycles. I won't even try to make the connection between time waves and all this right now, but it all is directly connected to time waves. And what we are doing is catching the time wave of ascension with this planet, the part of it that's going up. And that's what our work is about helping each other and ourselves and however many people on the planet and whatever life kingdoms on the planet can do it to make the shift back into the natural healing cycles where ascension does continue to be a possibility and a reality at some point in the future. So anyway, that's a lot, and I'm probably making you late for dinner already. We got 2 minutes to dinner. And I think they're strict here. That's why I'm worried about it. It's like, you don't show up for dinner, you're not here. You know what I mean? You don't eat. So I'm going to let y'all go. There is enough time. I do apologize for having to run this late on a night when they happen to do the formal, but there are 2 formals. So, I mean, we're going to throw something on, and even though we don't have time to shower, we're going to eat. So I hope you all will get there too. I hope this was worth it. I hope you got enough out of it. It's so hard sometimes with the new stuff to try to explain it. But we'll have information for you as far as what we're going to be doing on Tuesday when we do the Belize trip.
I'm meeting people here at 7 tomorrow night.
7 tomorrow night, you're meeting people here. Okay. Okay. What? Yes, yes, yes. Yes, yes. It's actually running right here under the Iyumbi. Your Kathara Center 2 and 1. There's actually 1 is half ripped apart and shoved up into part of the Iyumbi and part of 2. And it creates, I didn't get time to go into this, an unnatural vortex going downwards that's called the graviton. That's what keeps you stuck to the ground way too hard than you're supposed to be. Okay, so this is, we all have one of these. So do plants. And so do amoeba. Right? I wonder what amoeba we're taking with us on the upside. certain. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, they're just finishing up an ordination in the hallway, so that will be done momentarily. I can actually start just say 9 o'clock. Anyway, good evening, everybody. Yeah, this is just a quickie shorty to get the next part of the technique that we're going to need charged in the fields for tomorrow, and we're going to run it during the stand tomorrow as well to amplify it. But we may not be able to run it as a group as far, it will sit in the stand positions or whatever, but we may not be able to do stuff out loud. So if we have it amped in the fields tonight, it won't matter whether or not we can do it out loud tomorrow. We'll just be able to run it. We're going to start, again, just for amplification purposes, the part that we already did of the 4 spheres. We're going to go through those 14 steps and then take it right in through steps 15 through 24, which is Part B. Part B gets kind of fun. It's the activation of the Nadradhan cell, and this begins the process. It activates all of the, I'll show you, one Friday I come back with the graphs. This ought to be interesting because there's going to be more graphs that I have to paste together from other graphs on the film on Friday. But you'll see more of what I'm talking about. But if you can remember, when I showed the graphs of the grids and it goes for your body or the planetary body or whatever, we have the lotus points on the inside of the pillar, and then those progressive layers of Lodi points and Lodum points and Loda points that extend outward, and then the radius lines that connect them all through. What this activation is going to be doing is activating the Nadrudan cell, and then that progressively activates the sets that connect to the lotus points. So you'll be getting the 96 lotus point activation, and it prepares the entire system for when the pin is pulled. So the pillar of power will begin its activation phase, where on Friday we'll be bringing the ethos up for the first time, because that's when the planet is going to actually bring it up for the first time after the pin is pulled. But this prepares the system for, as soon as that happens, once all of those lotus points are activated in the system and the radius lines are activated, which are the ones that connect those points together all the way out through the field, it will, once the pin is pulled and the ethos starts to rise, the part of our systems and the part of the planet's systems that once upon a time were hijacked by the Tothian grids, the one-third that belonged to them that was going to go its way and weren't going to be able to pull it back, that is going to release, and those lines will pull it right back in. It'll rotate the radial body right back in to the natural alignment. So we're going to create pole shift in ourselves back into the natural alignment, and the planet's going to create pole shift in itself. Not because of what we're doing, it's going to do it anyway, but the fact that there is a group of us on the planet that is also assisting in that process, that we're doing it with it, it will make it much easier for the planet. There won't be as much kickback for the planet. So what we're doing tonight is opening the radius lines and activating the Nadrudan cell. So all of those lotus points through the whole field can connect together through the inner 12 or 24 that we've been working with. And literally, when the pin gets pulled, it's because of all of those radius lines through them being opened that will just rotate the radial body back into its natural alignment out of the 23.5 shift. So that's the beginning phase of being able to bring the ethos up. Once that's done, then the ethos can, for the first time in ages and ages, rise. And we'll be doing that on Friday. They haven't even given us the technique yet. I know there's a technique coming that has to do with pulling the pin, and I think we're doing it Friday. What we're doing tomorrow on the grids is preparing it, and it will release on its own, and I think it releases Friday. They haven't given me this yet. So it's not like we're going to go and pull the pin tomorrow. We're laying in the frequencies, doing this same thing that we've been doing with our fields. We're assisting the planet to do it, because the planet's activating tomorrow. Because we're indigos, we can activate a little bit faster than the planet can on things like this, and it helps to bring it in to the planet on an even keel as opposed to a erratic keel. But I believe the big hurrah day is Friday. Once we're off the site, we're going to be linking all of the sites that we've worked with together, and through that process we're going to be present and accounted for when those frequencies have built up in the planet where it releases the pin itself. And it's at that point that there's a technique that we're going to have for Friday that we can work with the planet releasing its to release our own. And once that happens, then we can bring the ethos up. And there's a couple of stages of a new kind of breathing, like where it's a rhythmic breathing that goes in sets of 6. And this has to do with some diagrams I have to get done. 6 cycle diagrams that kind of go with the ones from Ireland that we did a while back when we talked about the yugas and that kind of thing. So this is a type of breathing. Think of tiny yugas that happen in the body all the time, or that are supposed to. We're getting the ability back to do that. And that is the process of activating the pillar of power. And I do believe this is all in preparation for the next stage, because after you get your ethos rising, and you get that breathing able to do, after a certain point, there's a spark that happens. There's a frequency that builds up in the body where it allows the ethos catharic grid to jump and go up and connect with the parallel eros one, and then they both ride down together, and there's this whole shift that happens in the body, and that's when you get like the flash off, so you get the 90 charge, and I think we might even go up to 360. See, I don't know these yet. They didn't get the techniques yet either, but this is the stuff that will be happening in the English workshop. All right, so like if you're here, and even if you don't go to the English workshop, you will still get it, step down. Whoever's at the English workshop are going to get that. They will be picking up through the shields the activations we're doing here. So this is a step-by-step process of getting the breathing ability back. It doesn't all just like bang, pull the pin, and now you're like back to your full yoni phase. But this is the activation of the pillar of power, which allows all of the rest to begin to happen. And it's really exciting. So I'll turn this over to Az, because bless him, he just got done typesetting the second part for us. So you guys will have a copy of this in the event that we have to do it quietly again on the grids tomorrow. So everybody has, a paper, and hopefully it won't rain and run the ink all over. No, these will be photocopied actually, right? Yeah, the ones you'll get tomorrow will be photocopied, and that ink sets better on the paper. The paper might dissolve, but the ink will stay on it right, if it rains. Hopefully it won't rain. Anyway, I'm going to hand this over. Things will, when we get to Friday, where I've got the other techniques down, because they haven't given them to me. Whatever this pulling the pin one is, I've tried everything. I've tried going out in the astral to try to bring it down faster, to bring it in. It's still on security lock. So I do believe it's going to be either tomorrow night, where I'll be doing an all-nighter again, so it's ready for Friday, or Friday morning. That one's being given. I don't know why it's on security lock, but when I even go out and still can't pull it back, I can touch it when it's out there, but I can't pull it in yet. That usually means they've got it. There's a reason, because there's other data connected to it that would compromise usually our safety if it was brought down here. So it's like if they keep it up in the ethers, we can't. I'm using that lightly, ethers. Yeah. If they keep it up there, the other guys that are monitoring us don't know what our next step is, because we don't know either. So this one particular technique that has to do with releasing the pin, I've not even been able to touch, so we're all sitting here with our pins, but they're going to be gone by Friday. So anyway, I'll turn this over to Az. He actually got it done like 2 minutes before we had to go out the door, but so it can be handed to Darlene so she can have it copied, so you'll have photocopies in the morning of the whole thing. Because these techniques can be run for amplification purposes after the fact as well. Even though once you have the Notre Dame cell in the body, and there's a set of them actually, there's one on the density level, one on each dimensional level, we're going to be activating the density 1 and the D1, 2, and 3 levels, and that will kick into activation all the way up in your other density bodies. But anyway, all right, get on with it. Yep, okay. I say move. Get it. All right, there's something coming. There's something coming in the grids that he wants to synchronize.
Yeah.
Okay, something good is beginning to rumble. They call it quickening in the grids. That is beginning. So now's a good time to run this. In other words, shut up.
It's a quickening. You wouldn't think so, but. Yesterday, I was wondering, asking about how often, if at all, we should repeat this, and the answer I got was, it's optional as always, but once a week, over 4 weeks after the first time you've done it, if you want to. It's significant. All right. Right now, how I'm going to do this. There are two things I want to point out to you. We will run through the technique that we shared yesterday, and I'll do it straight off. When I come to part B, I will repeat every step twice. So wait for me to come to the second time I do it. I'm going to read it, so you know what we're going to do, and so that then I'll read it a second time, and you can do what I've read out already. And the reason I do this on occasions where I know that the personal significance of the technique is immense, and this is an immensely significant technique that we're going to do. So I want you all to be able to relax, not get flustered or worried. What did you say? What should I do with this, that, the other? I'll do it twice so you're all sure of what you're going to do. Now, the third thing to point out to you is that when we hit step 22, and you'll hear me say step 22, try and remember that from step 22, you're going into meditation. You're going into observation, feeling, intending that what I'm saying you can either see, feel, sense, or intend as occurring. So you won't be actually told to do any action. So you can relax and completely go inside, right? See, feel, however it works for you. Just simply intend that what I'm saying is what's going on if you can't see, feel, all right?
It is what's going on.
Yeah, it is what's going on. So from step 22, you're in meditation space. You're not going to be told to do any action other than to feel, all right? And observe. So, and I'll give you a gentle nudge when we get there. Okie dokes. Then, just bring yourselves into focus then, before we begin, on the Luadore Unesta Yunhadra code. Intend that this code is firmly located at the Ra center at chakra 3, that it is re-imprinting the Ra center with the etheric signature of the Luadore Unesta Yunhadra. While you're doing that, begin to call to mind the emerald crystal storage vessel that houses the L'Ettore Cavern's etheric hologram sphere. Mentally intend or visualize the emerald crystal at the center of the 48-petal lotus. Intend or visualize the 48-petal lotus with the emerald crystal at its center, over the Ra center at chakra 3. Now bring your palms together in the prayer position over the Azure as you inhale slowly and deeply from the Ra center, drawing the 48-petal lotus with the emerald crystal center and the L'Ettore Unesta Yunhadra code imprint into the Ra center and upward to the pineal. Be aware that as the L'Ettore Unesta Yunhadra code imprint and the emerald crystal travel upward to the pineal, that the L'Ettore Unesta Yunhadra code imprint and emerald crystal merge, becoming one, encrypting the L'Ettore Unesta Yunhadra code into the emerald crystal. Pause at the top of the inhale breath. With the encrypted emerald crystal at the center of the 48-petal lotus at the pineal, exhale gently on a horizontal projection line forwards and backwards from chakra 6, expanding the L'Ettore Cavern 6-foot holographic sphere outward all around you while giving the mental command, Eyes of Ra open. Keep the emerald crystal and 48-petal lotus at the pineal. And slowly bring your hands out of the prayer position during the exhale to the sides of your body, with your fingers in the lotus touch position. Phase 2, the heart of Ra. Take a long, slow, horizontal 2-point breath inward along the chakra 6 forward, backward projection line, back into the emerald crystal at the pineal, while intending or mentally commanding the 6-foot Eyes of Ra L'Ettore Cavern's holographic sphere remains extended all around you. Continue inhaling and drawing the emerald crystal and its 48-petal lotus downward with the last part of the inhale into heart chakra number 4. Hold the breath at the top of the inhale briefly with the emerald crystal stationed at chakra 4, and bring both hands with fingers in the lotus touch position up to rest the lotus fingers gently on chakra 4. Keeping the emerald crystal and 48-petal lotus in the heart chakra, exhale slowly and gently on a forward-backward horizontal projection line from chakra 4 whilst giving the mental command, Heart of Ra awaken. Use the exhale breath to expand the L'Ettore Cavern's hologram sphere outward from chakra 4 all around you until it expands to become a 12-foot holographic sphere, or approximately the lengths of 2 bodies in all directions all around you. And don't forget that this permeates you as well as being all around you. Inhale back along the horizontal projection line into chakra 4 center, while intending that the 12-foot holographic sphere remains expanded from chakra 4. Continue inhale using the last part to draw the emerald crystal and 48-petal lotus from chakra 4 downward to the Iombi. Hold the breath at the top of the inhale with the emerald crystal and 48-petal lotus stationed at the Iombi 1 to 2 inches below the navel. Next, the seat of Ra. While holding the inhale breath, move your hands to the Iombi and place the lotus touch fingers gently on the Iombi. Exhale on a 2-point forward-backward projection line from the Iombi while leaving the emerald crystal 48-petal lotus in the Iombi, using the exhale to expand the L'Ettore Cavern's holographic sphere outward to become 24 feet in diameter, a sphere 24 feet in diameter all around you, giving the mental command, Seat of Ra awaken, as you exhale. Inhale back along the iambic horizontal projection line into the iambi, then downwards, using the last part of the inhale breath to draw the emerald crystal 48-petal lotus down to a point in the central vertical current directly across from the tops of your knees, just above the kneecaps. Hold the inhale briefly with the emerald crystal 48-petal lotus stationed at the knees point. The throne of Ra. Release your fingers and hands from the lotus touch position and allow your arms and hands to relax at your sides. Then slowly exhale on a horizontal forward-backward axis from the knee point between your knees and the central vertical current. Leaving the emerald crystal 48-petal lotus at knee point, use the exhale breath to expand the L'Etore cavern's holographic sphere outward from the knee point until it expands to 48 feet in diameter, a sphere 48 feet in diameter all around you, and give the mental command, Throne of Ra awaken, as the knee point sphere expands. Inhale back along the knee point horizontal projection line, while intending that the 48-foot holographic sphere remains expanded all around you. Complete the inhale at the knee point, and then take several natural resting breaths from the knee point, while the emerald crystal and lotus remain stationed there. Now we're moving straight on to part B, the Nadradon cell and radius line activation. Phase 5, Crown of Ra. Now this is where I'm going to repeat each step twice. Step 15. Focus attention on the emerald crystal at the center of the 48-petal lotus, stationed at the knee point. Take several deep, relaxed breaths while reaching this focus. Then we'll inhale from the knee point and hold the inhale at the knee point for a moment. So, with your attention focused now on the emerald crystal at the center of the 48-petal lotus, stationed at the knee point, inhale from the knee point and hold the inhale at the knee point for a moment. Gosh, this is going to be difficult. You will next rapidly exhale a single point breath from the knee point downward, using the exhale to push the emerald crystal 48-petal lotus rapidly down to the Mahadra earth core. So I'm not going to repeat this twice. Quickly inhale again as soon as the emerald crystal enters the Mahadra, using a strong rapid inhale to draw the emerald crystal all the way upward to chakra 14, 36 inches above the head, just as if the emerald crystal bounced back upward to chakra 14 once it hit the Mahadra below. At the top of this rapid inhale, when the emerald crystal enters chakra 14, hold the breath for a moment. Now, whilst giving, I'm only going to do this once now, you're all doing it straight away. Now, whilst giving the mental command, rays of Ra unfold, release the inhale internally into the emerald crystal at chakra 14. And breathe in a relaxed and easy way from chakra 14, and observe or imagine that the emerald crystal at chakra 14 slowly but steadily ignites into a brilliant golf ball sized spherical starburst with Manu pale emerald green, pale golden silver, and pale violet silver pink heliotalic rays emanating outward from its interior center point. Continue to breathe gently from chakra 14 and observe that the emerald crystal starburst is communicating energetically with the 4 L'Etore holographic spheres expanded around you. And as this communication takes place, observe as each of the 4 L'Etore spheres also begin to radiate beautiful heliotalic starburst rays of pale emerald green, pale golden silver, and pale violet silver pink, until the 4 holographic spheres become a set of radiating, shimmering starbursts, 1 6-foot in diameter, 1 12-foot in diameter, 1 12-foot in diameter, and the fourth 48 feet in diameter. Phase 6, the staff of Ra. I'll read this through and then I'll repeat it for you, so don't do anything yet. Inhale a 48 petal lotus breath from chakra 14, then rapidly exhale, using the exhale to push the starburst emerald crystal downward, all the way down from chakra 14 to enter the Mahadra at Earth's core at the point of exhale completion. Now when the starburst emerald crystal enters the Mahadra, wait. Inhale quickly, using the rapid inhale at the Mahadra to draw the starburst emerald crystal upward to a point in your central vertical current that lies directly between your feet, and hold the inhale as the emerald crystal enters this point. Okay. Now, step 19, we'll begin it now. Inhale a 48 petal lotus breath from chakra 14, then rapidly exhale, using the exhale to push the starburst down all the way from chakra 14 to enter Mahadra at Earth's core by the point of exhale completion. When the starburst enters the Mahadra, inhale quickly, using the inhale to draw the starburst crystal upward to a point in your central vertical current that lies directly between your feet, and hold the inhale as the emerald crystal enters this point. The point between the feet is the location of the density 1 Nadradhan cell center seal and is called the Nadra key. Continue holding the breath at the top of the inhale as the at the Nadra key for a few moments more. Now in a sec, hold it. Exhale forcefully into the center of the starburst emerald crystal at the Nadra key while giving the mental command, Staff of Ra receive. So exhale forcefully into the center of the crystal, giving the command, Staff of Ra receive. And just return to gentle, relaxed breathing from the feet point Nadra key and observe the awakening of the etheric atomic pillar of power. And this is the start of the observation, see, feel, intention stage, where you will not be asked to do anything else other than that. Phase 7, the Nadradhan cell activation, merging of the spheres. So breathe easy while observing that the Nadra key feet point opens around the starburst emerald crystal, and the starburst emerald crystal enters, then disappears through this Nadra key doorway at the feet point. When the starburst emerald crystal disappears, a gentle internal vibration may be felt, spreading from the Nadra key point upward and downward through the central vertical current. As this vibration extends to simultaneously enter both the Adrana at chakra 14 and the Mahadra at Earth core, a beautiful transformation takes place within the 4 L'Etorre holographic starburst spheres around you, as the Eka L'Etorre cavern holograms merge with their L'Edore parallel Eka twin spheres. Feel, notice, or intend that as the Adrana above and the Mahadra below receive the Nadra key vibration, that the Ra center in chakra 3 releases a brilliant flash of pale gold and silver Eka Iane light. And next, and in response, the long dormant etheric ethos Ka center in chakra 2, that's the sacral, releases a brilliant flash of pale violet, silver pink, parallel Eka Adonai light. after the Ka center flashes, chakra 2 and chakra 3 open. And both chakras expand. And as they expand, they merge. Through their expansion and merging, they merge through the Iumbi ethos flame. As the dimension 2 Grual control Nadradon cell emerges from the dimension 2 Nadraki center seal in the Iumbi flame. Expanding to the center seed seals in chakras 2 and 3, in this way, linking the Ra and the Ka centers and their chakras together through the pale violet, silver pink D2 Nadradon cell. As the process of the D2 Nadradon cell process of awakening develops, right now, the 4 L'Eture caverns holographic spheres around you all flash brilliantly. First, a beautiful Iane pale golden silver flash. Then an iridescent Adonai pale violet silver pink flash. And then the 4 spheres merge into one huge pale violet silver pink holographic starburst sphere that extends outwards for 90 feet in all directions around you. Just continue to feel, intend or observe, as we move into phase 8, the music of the spheres, the Nadra sheath release, and lotus point radius line activation. Continue as you are observing and trying to feel the reality of the Nadradon cell activation taking place within you now. Listen as best you're able with your inner hearing to hear the chorus of the music of the spheres that begins releasing into the atomic structure. Once the etheric dimensions 1 through 5 Nadra sheath around the D1 atomic pillar releases through Nadradon cell activation. As the 4 holographic spheres complete their merging process, the Nadra atomic sheath barrier dissolves, preparing the atomic structure for pillar of power activation and Tilia breathing. Observe, intend or feel that as these activations unfold within your etheric body, that your 24 PCM lotus points all become pale violet, silver pink starburst spheres with an emerald flame containing pale golden silver light within them. As the inner pillar 24 lotus points turn on the Adonai light, the 24 low-T points of your D 1.5 through D 11.5 photosphere turn on, which are followed by the 24 low-Tum points of your D 12.5, 0.5 logosphere, finally followed by the 24 Lota points of your D 13.5 Lotus sphere and primal light field. As the 24 Lota points activate, the long dormant radius lines connecting through the low-T point sets and into the etheric atomic center pillar also turn on. Thus preparing the crystal body and manifest anatomy for pillar of power activation, release of the sextant pin, rising of the ethos, and return of Tiliya breathing. And finally we address the Matrodon flow initiation. Once the radius lines activate through the 96 PCM low T points, the density 1 Nadrodon cell emerges from the feet point, density 1 Nadra key seal, expanding a sphere of pale violet silver pink starburst upwards to the lower calves, that's the calves in your legs. Now this is happening now. And this process extends downwards to the Maharic shield, 12 inches below your feet. Continue to observe, feel, or intend this process. As the starburst spreads upwards into the lower calves and downwards to the Maharic shield, opening the Maharic shield center seal to the Eka Matrodon cell pillar of power flow. The feet chakra seed seals open now and initiate L'Edore current flow within the etheric atomic body, setting the carrier wave through which the ethos etheric pillar of power can rise once the sextant pin releases, to reinstate the potential of natural, eternal life, Tiliya breathing, and progressive seed atom recharge. Once this activation is completed, the Nadrodon cell remains activated and ready to receive transmutation of its unnatural buckyball radiation matrix harness through progressive application of Pillar of Power, Ethos Rising, Kathara technologies. Until Ethoson, Ethos Pillar Rising technologies are employed, breathing the Nadrodon cell energy should be done only through the protective filter of the Ra center. Once the sextant pin is released and Ethos Pillar ascent is initiated, etheric atomic healing, recharge and amplification can be done by Tiliya breathing directly through the Nadrodon cell and the Pillar of Power. Now very slowly and gently begin to bring your attention fully back into your body. Slowly and gently, bringing your attention back into the room. Dear friends and loved ones sitting on either side, front and back of you, just come back gently. And when you're ready, open your eyes.
Thank you very much for reading that. Well, this is the beginning of a wonderful process. Some of you may be feeling it already. Some may kick in at dinner or when you're watching a movie or something tonight. One of the first things, and we realized, at first we both thought we were going a little loony because we were hearing music in the strangest of places for about a month. We didn't realize that we were beginning this slow pre-activations of the Nadradhan cell. We didn't even know about the Nadradhan cell. But first it was coming through fans, then it was coming through the refrigerator electrical sound. Then it was on the way to driving here to get to the airport to get here, it was coming through the road sounds of the wheels on the asphalt. And, I've been thinking, well, I've been weird all my life, so I'm not going to worry about this. But it was so pronounced because it was not just in my head. Like, I'm used to things, hearing them and things, seeing them and all that in my head. It was external as well. I could hear music. I mean, it was so real a couple of times in the last, 3 or 4 months, actually. And it wasn't very often, just once in a while. Yeah. Yeah. Somebody have a stereo on. Yeah, exactly. Run around the house trying to find it because it was so distinct. Sometimes it was a chorus with like hundreds of voices. Other times it was completely instrumental, and you could tell where the strings were and where the clarinets were and all of this kind of stuff. This is strange. Sometimes it was upbeat. Sometimes it was slow and classical type music. It was really strange. It was like somebody turned the radio on out there somewhere. Well, all of this has to do with activating the Nadradhan cell, which we didn't know. It has to do with what they call the music of the spheres. And sometimes there is such a quality to it. And you might start hearing it inside first before you start getting it outside, but don't be surprised if you start hearing music that no one else is hearing out there. Just kind of smile and realize it's an opening. There's this sheath in the pillar, in the central pillar, that I don't know a lot about, but it's what do they call it? It's the Nadradhan sheath that goes with the Nadradhan cell. But it's like a barrier between the etheric and the atomic levels. And once that dissolves through activation of the Nadradhan cell, it allows the frequencies of the etheric, which means the frequencies of the parallel eka, as well as the frequencies from this side, to begin merging and blending. And I remember joking with Alice saying, well, the Iani can dance, but the Adonai can sing, right? I'm sure they both can do both, because the Iani taught us the round table dancing and that kind of thing, and the Sariyas and all of that. Well, this is the Ariyas, but the very high-level Ariyas. They're the sound counterparts to the Suriyas, which were, the living pillars and the movements that went with them. These are the sounds. These are the sacred Ariyas that are beginning to come through, and some of them are absolutely gorgeous. Some are male voice, some are female, some are just complete instrumental. Sometimes you can identify the instruments like something you've heard. Other times you have no idea what instruments make those sounds, but they're wonderful. So one of the first things you might experience are little strange bursts of hearing the music, either inside or outside. And for us, it seemed to come, the first noticeable place from the outside it was coming, it was as if it was using electrical current as carrier waves, where like anything that has electricity running through it would start to sing. And it's not just the same like monotone. I remember I would sit there and listen when I first realized something's going on here, because it's not just my ear or my head, taking a consistent vibration here and turning it into a song. Because it would finish that one. Then it would go to a completely different song with instrumentals instead of voices, with completely different, completely different. And then it would go back to another one. So there would be like a series of songs.
When you find that you're putting oil on the spindle of the fan, right, and you still can hear the sound,
Yeah.
you're putting oil on the spindle in the right place, and you still hear it.
Yeah. Right. couple times they did it with me, where it was first, the fan was the first thing, because I sleep with the fan on in the bedroom because it helps me breathe. The cool air is easier for me to breathe. And I sleep with it right by the bed. The one night, I didn't have it on, and I heard them anyway. That's when I started saying, okay. Yeah, maybe I'm just losing it at this point, but that's okay. I don't mind. I'll give myself permission. If I'm nuts, I'll let myself be nuts. That's okay, because it's very natural for me to be that way. And as long as I'm connected to Source, I really don't care. But I know I'm not nuts. But I also know that I don't jump to conclusions. I'm not the kind of person that says, oh, I heard a song in the air, that means the, Adonai are around, that kind of stuff. I don't do the fluffy stuff, the light, love, and clueless, airheaded stuff. The angels are singing to me thing. You know what I mean? Sometimes the angels will. And I think I'll stick with the Adonai. But anyway, it became so apparent, and then I started hearing it when I was doing transmission, like the work, when it's really funny in our house. It's almost like the tiptoe house when I'm in transmission, because some of the stuff coming especially from the Adonai side, the frequency is so high-pitched that I get super sensitive to sound outside. I can't stand the sound of the TV in the next room. I can't stand the sound of a conversation on the phone in the next room. It just, fries my circuits, with the stuff coming in when I'm doing translation. And so it's like really quiet in the house, and all of a sudden they're going on and on and on. Oh, it's you guys. It is you, isn't it? It's not me. I'm not making it up. And then for a while, I was like, okay, well, somebody's singing. I'm not going to jump to conclusions that it's our guys. You know what I mean? The other guys, they can make beautiful holograms. They can do anything to mislead you and get you to go around, on the wrong way. So I was like, put it in file 13 with a grain of salt. We'll see if it turns out to be our guys. Pretty songs, whoever's doing it, but, So I didn't just jump to conclusions. We both kind of went through this period of, all right, is it what it seems to be like it might be? And it is. They finally confirmed it, and it's all connected to activation of the Nadradhan cell. Another thing you might get is some wacky sensations in anywhere from your knees to your feet. Anything from pleasant sensations, particularly in the feet. I was getting pleasant ones, but sometimes the energy builds up there. And I don't know, we just did this activation with you now. This was our first time doing the activation. We've obviously been getting little bursts of it that were on autopilot, so we could deliver this material. Because basically when we bring a technique through, that's the first time we run it. It actually runs as the translation's coming through. So I don't know what next to expect, but I know we've been getting like heat rushes sometimes, or cold rushes sometimes, through the feet, through the bottom of the feet. There's also on Friday, we'll talk to you about, I'll have some graphs to show you. When I talked about the ethos being pillar, they're supposed to come up and down, being phase locked, where because of the sextant distortion, it's actually phase locked and twisted. Its rod is twisted in a way it's not supposed to be. As that starts to clear, I've been getting, on occasion, I get pain in the strangest places, like inside the knee, like here, in this funny little muscle area back in there. Just like, and in fact, I actually got a growth in there. And I talked to it, and I said, listen, you're going one way or the other. You might be a manifestation of this messed up, rod thing in here. But I don't care if I have to go to the doctor and get you cut out. If you start having problems with it, talk to this stuff as consciousness. It's consciousness that's no longer compatible with your Christic form, and say, do you want to leave the easy way or the hard way? And it's really funny, because it was getting bigger and bigger. I was saying, well, I'm going to have to go to the doctor and get whatever this thing is cut out. And I zapped it a few times with the Lotus Touch, and just kind of really just talked with it mentally, and said, go ahead, keep going. You get any bigger, and you're getting out of here, one way or the other. And you were getting chakra cramps in the soles of the feet. The little chakras in the soles of the feet were actually cramping. This is when the good stuff is activating. It's starting to break up the Shona stuff that's coming from that radiation matrix, the buckyball radiation matrix, that's been holding the Nadradhan cell and the rest of our cellular coding, into a negative form. But we had some strange things. This thing was a riot, because within 2 or 3 days I worked on it, and he's got some powerful electricals when he does healing. You're quite amazing. I think that was what it needed. But between those 3 factors, him zapping it with his electricals on the Lotus, me zapping it with mine, and me having a real attitude toward it. Like, I know you're a manifestation of this thing that's not supposed to be here, and you're not going to get me. I will fight you. This is my body. You don't live in it. You don't belong in it anymore. You had to ride for a long time. You're going. It went. It dissolved. It went within about 2 days. It was half the size. And then it was like we check it every once in a while. It stayed there for a bit. And then next time I checked it, you figure you have it. And then it's gone. And it completely dissolved itself. So that was the most severe thing that has happened at all with any of this. And progressively, particularly, this is where the exercise becomes important. Because the more I exercise, the more nothing hurts. Like you don't, when the frequency is coming through, it doesn't get jammed up because the axiotonals can't expand to hold it and that kind of thing. That's why it is important, particularly, this is just the beginning of these activations. When we do Pillar of Power and begin to get that ethos rising, there's a whole sparking set that you can amplify the spin of the seed atom. And, to get it where you're actually riding the highest time waves that the planet is riding. And theoretically, if it ever gets to the point where we're going through gates physically, this is where you start to get control over what gates you can go in, because it has to do with how fast your seed atom spins in relation to how fast your Merkaba is going to spin and that kind of stuff. But we won't start with that. What we're starting with is just getting the body to be able to hold the ethos frequencies in the first place. The next will be bringing the eros down, and that creates a whole other level of sparking, where you go from the 45 sparks into 90, and then 180, and then 360 sparks. So this is just the beginning. So the exercise part it's almost essential. Well, it is essential if you're going to get your physical body to where it can hold these frequencies. Because if it can't hold them, the shield will just shut them down. It'll store them. They'll be available, but they won't be able to run at an intensity at any given time. It'll be like they'll have to push it through gently, over longer periods of time, whatever you activate. So the physical is important. I know we're getting guided, especially me, because I've always had cardiovascular issues, and that directly connects with the seed atom spin and that kind of stuff. They're pushing me to develop the cardio. So, you can actually feel it when you start running the frequencies. And I can't wait to get home and try this now that we have these activations, because I was just running little bits before. But if you get it going with the cardio and you start breathing these frequencies in and out, you can override what the breath usually does. Usually I hit a point, particularly because I've had asthma for a long time. Even as a kid, it was like the body couldn't do long distance running or any of those kind of things because it would kick in the asthma. Where you could actually get to the point where you find where it's going to do its usual limit stuff, wherever that limit is, and you can breathe flame into it and expand it out, and it's like your lungs capacity changes, and it moves past that point. And I found that with just using the Gazelle machine, and it's really, there's a lot of potential here. And I don't know what it's doing on the physical level, but it's obviously allowing the lungs to process more oxygen, which would do something with enhancing the whole body's ability to perform, I would think, at some point, as far as just physical performance and things. So this is the beginning. We're starting with the Loga stretches that Az is introduced. We're going to go into a bit of the strength training also, because once you start stretching the lines, that's good. The next is fortifying them. And this is where, like, the weight training and boring stuff that actually works, like ab work and that kind of stuff, boy, can ab work bring in the frequencies into the Ra center. And the hardest part I found to reach was the Ka center. That's where all the tied up mess is right now. And it was like, I went through all sorts of exercises trying to find something that would actually reach those, because no matter what I tried to do with the lower abs, I couldn't quite feel them. It was as if they're in there somewhere. I know they're in there. I could do sit-ups. I got to the point where I couldn't do one sit-up, to the point where I can do 12, and that's easy, and that's fine, and I don't really want to do 24, and that's fine too. Right? But it still took forever to find something to reach down here, and I finally found a military one that's not fun to do at all, but but it got the energy in here. These are going to get easier, now that we're working with these things. So if we have time, I haven't had time to do the nice paperwork on them yet, because it's really a bit premature. They're going to teach us the breathing first, and then you've got the stretching and the breathing together. The next would be adding the strength training to that, and then amplifying the breathing and the stretching to the next level after your body gets used to one. But if we have a bit of time on Friday left, after we do the breathing, the new breathing techniques that we're going to be given, I will at least show you some, a couple you could probably remember easily. They're pretty standard ones, but I'm going to give you some of the ab ones, just because they'll do two things. They not only work the abs, they also work the back muscles as well. So if you have problems with pain in the tailbone and that kind of thing, they can really help. And at first you might lay on the floor and go, Yeah, right. I can't even lift myself up into a crunch. Are you kidding? I couldn't do a crunch when I first tried this. I could hardly move. And I realized how ill my body actually was. It was stiff. It was like rigor mortis. It was like dead already, you know? But I found by pushing myself just a little, not to hurt, but like, you know, even if I could do one crunch, ow, with the tailbone screaming, and then just sort of lay on the floor. That's what I did. And I did it for 3 weeks. I made myself do, well, I started with 6, because 12, it would have taken me 3 days for every one day to get 12 done for every day. It was hopeless. But I let myself rest for a half hour in between ones if I had to. Now, I got a routine together at this point, and this is, what, we started this March 1st. This is, what, it's almost 6 months, is it? Yeah, 5 months. I went from not even being able to do a crunch properly, forget a sit-up, a full sit-up, to where I do 12 different exercises, 12 reps of them, all in a row without stopping. Yeah, and that's just the ab set and that kind of thing. And it's gotten easy. What's funny is I haven't done it in about 3.5 weeks properly because of the 3 weeks we went crazy doing the work to get ready for this, and then hardly did it at all here because we were busy. I just did it this morning. Like, ow. So it does go backwards if you don't do it consistently. A little bit every day does help. So I'll try to give you some of those to begin the process, the ones that I felt worked the best to get the energy into these centers in here. And even the one, I'll let you see what it is, but if you can't do it right away, that's okay. The one that has to do with the lower ones.
Once people start opening their fields and they start increasing capacity, they're pulling more miasmic crap in too.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's one of the...
So you can actually create more to clear than you
If you did it when you weren't running the flames, yes. But the fact that you're running the flames, as we were just mentioning, that when you begin to open the axiotonals, you're actually pulling the Shona stuff in first, because that's like a layer that sits between you and your flame. Now that you have, this is why they taught the breathing first, because when you get the breathing going, and now especially with the pillar of power stuff that we're going to be able to do, we're bringing in enough frequency from the flames to be able to transmute that stuff as it goes. Because if you just do, this exercise is actually good for your body. It'll show form no matter what, whether you're breathing flames or not. But you progressively bring in more Shona in the more you exercise. And that's what regular exercise is doing. It doesn't mean it's bad for you. At least it's bringing something in that's, you know, charging your body on a regular basis. But when we're working with the flames, it's going to bring in the pillar of power frequencies behind the Shona, and it will like actually go through the Shona, and it will burn them off as they come through, so they won't get stuck. So you're not, you know, exercising and doing good for your body right now, but actually building up a bunch of stuff that's going to make your seed atoms spin slower by the time you get older. So it's going to transmute it as it goes. And this is the beginning. The physical work is worth it. And you don't have to kill yourself doing it. You don't have to do 3 hours in the gym every day, or like, you know, redirect your whole life to where you're going to do gym first, and if there's time for anything else, you'll do that. You don't need to do that. But we'll try to show you some of the beginning ones. This isn't the transfiguration program yet, but it's the beginnings. It's what we've used to begin to get control of the axiom lines in through the middle. And that makes a big difference. The middle, it's like it fuels the down part and the up part. You know, if you look at your body in thirds, if you have the upper third, the middle third, and the lower third, if you start in the middle, it's really allowing the frequencies of the Laettori and the Laetdori flame to come through. The next thing that I did, I worked middle and top at the same time. That's where like small weight training really, really helps. It changed everything about the way my whole spine sat on itself. And between that and the ab work, it straightened out my spine and my central vertical column. My posture just kind of did its own thing and clicked into what feels like its right place for itself. And it made my breathing do something I was amazed with. It just expanded. Now I start to have breathing problems if I go a week without doing a little bit of the arm work. It goes back to where it used to be, but not as bad. And it comes back real fast. So I'll show you some of the basic exercises that I do, but you may have to take notes on that stuff because I didn't have time. It takes forever to find the little pictures and cut them out and then write up the descriptions and all that. It takes forever to do that. And they wanted to teach us about the other stuff in this one first. But I will give you a preview of that if there's time so you can begin playing with it. And I found that worked. I mean, that's the stuff that really starts the shape shifting. But you need the loga as well, because that stretches. The stretches are just as important as building the strength. Or you end up with, real strong axiom lines, but they're all jumbled up, and that's where you get that muscle bucks, the bulky muscle stuff where you're walking around like Hulk, that kind of thing. Yeah. Yeah, you got like really strong axiom lines, except they're all tied in knots, right? Because they're not stretched out enough, because there was too much resistance applied. So they don't advocate that. The beloveds don't advocate building that huge muscle bulk. If some people are into that, and if that's what you want to do, fine. But that's not the most important thing to do with your body. There's a balance. Muscles are actually supposed to be sinewy. They're supposed to be long and graceful and flexible as well as strong. And there's a healthy balance. You have extremes on both sides on this planet, where you have like people with no muscle development whatsoever, and they're very thin and just everything hangs there with bones because the muscles aren't developed at all. And then you have like your he-men that are like, you have massive arms like this and chests that are out to here. And it's like, well, bless them. Part of that's gene code. Part of it's also doing things to the body to make the light energies come in a certain way. And what we've had available on this planet until recently is only Shona light. I mean, Shona light will build muscles too, but it's progressively bringing more Shona reverse matrix into the body when it does, but at least it brings something in. So you are better off exercising, even if you couldn't run flame. It will make you live longer. It will bring more mana frequency, and whether it's reversed or not, it will still bring it in. But what we're doing is, it's really exciting, because we have the ability now to begin bringing in the frequencies that will transmute the reversals as the whole bunch comes in. You'll energize the frequencies in the body and the axiotonals and the muscles, the atomic structure itself, on a regular Christic current, and that hasn't been available on this planet for ages. So it's getting exciting. If you while you're having dinner, you feel some funny things, anything from heat rushes, the cold rushes, all of that is part of the new frequencies coming into the body. It'll stabilize. If you get any jittery stuff, that tends to not be a part of this. If you ever get hit with frequencies that almost make your teeth chatter where they come through, know that you're picking up on a pulse that came through on the UIR. Some of them have been so bad, and the more sensitive you are to frequency, the more you might experience these. All right, there's been ones that came through a couple different times. And sometimes it'll bring like emotional surges. All of a sudden, it's like rage. Where the heck did that come from? Or tears. Where did that come from? Now, some of that can be clearing your own miasms. But if it seems real extreme or strong, it's usually associated with the pulsing that the UIR are doing. I mean, they are still moving forward at a slightly snail's pace on their World War III agenda stuff. And part of this has to do with hitting people's emotional bodies with certain types of emotional response. So it gets real important to try to look at yourself objectively. And when you're feeling something, first of all, say, I'm entitled to my feelings, so I can feel anything I want to. If I feel rage, and I give myself permission. Fine. All right. But first, before you give yourself permission to do that, make sure it's your rage you're feeling. Make sure, just because you're feeling it doesn't necessarily mean its origin is within you. It may be something that's frequency coming up through the earth grids that's meant to send your emotional body on a tangent that isn't yours. Particularly if you look at something and say, why do I feel that way about it? Where your rational mind says, it might bother me a little, but is my emotional reaction to this a bit, let's say, out of proportion to how much my mind feels about this? When you have those, if you can stop yourself and look at the emotion, not repress it, but look at it, to really ask yourself, is this my emotion, or is it a little bit my emotion and something else is pushing it and trying to make it something different? If you can become aware of these things, you will get more control over all of your fields during this process, because the UIR aren't going to stop pulsing. Most of the time, it won't be directed at you personally. It's directed into the grids in general, because they're trying to move masses of people in relation to each other. They're trying to move people in a way that certain groups will want to attack other groups. And we're all subject to picking up these frequencies as well while we're on the planet. So just be aware. This stuff isn't a part of Pillar of Power activation. The more we do with our Pillar of Power activation, and the more of the Christic frequencies we do get running, the more we'll probably be aware that that stuff is coming through, but it'll almost be like watching it in somebody else, where the feeling of it, as far as experiencing it, is it grabbing your core and trying to drag you around emotionally, it changes, where there's almost like a, I see that there, and I see there was a time when that would have dragged me right into an emotional twirl, and I would have lost control of my fields, where you realize that you grew because now you feel more peaceful and you can see the stuff move by and you start to realize, that really wasn't mine, that part, was it? But I see the little tiny part that was mine that it could attach to, the little idea or thought form or upsetness I had, and how it attached to it and blew it into an atom bomb, So the more you work with the good stuff, the more you will find you're aware of, even more aware of, when the negative's coming through, but it affects you less and less and less. And you're developing an immunity to it. That's what the pillar power frequencies will eventually do, is create a bioimmunity to running those frequencies, where they'll run through you instead of run at you and attach. They'll literally run through you. So you can be aware of them, which gives you an ability to be compassionate toward other people who are getting nailed by them and just dragging them around emotionally and making them act in ways and think in ways and feel in ways that they wouldn't normally feel if they realized they had a choice and if they had strengthened, enough field strength. So there's a lot of good stuff that will come out of this. Tonight, the most important thing was to get this initial activation set. This is the first time this has been run on this planet, Ma'aya said. So these technologies that we're being given, they haven't even been done here. The last time was Terra, he said, when this planet and this solar system were still part of the planet called Terra in density 2, which is, by the way, Alcyone in the Pleiades. So once upon a time, we were all Pleiadians. They don't have a corner on that market. Anyway, the little channels. That's really all we need to do tonight. Is it dinner time? Oh, good. Okay. Yeah, quarter after. Okay. So tomorrow we're meeting at some ungodly hour to begin our journey to Chichen Itzu. Yes. And tomorrow we will do a stand, and you also have your paperwork. If we get a chance to do it out loud, we'd like to, because the reason we wanted to bring it back to run this whole thing together is when we can run it together as a group, it really amplifies it and strengthens it. But we're all strong enough, too, as individuals, to even if we're, not directly all focused in the same place at exactly the same time with the same pacing of the words, we're still strong enough to link that. So with or without doing it, we would still be able to hold enough power as a collective to help the Earth with this activation. Well, hold on. Okay.
Just one little thing that I could have forgotten. Darlene will have photocopies of all of this technique for you in the morning. But what I wanted to point out was that she will also have sheets for everyone that contain the 13 tribe names. Okay. Make sure you get your copy from her. You know which tribes you're in. And whilst we're going along in the coach tomorrow, just do a little rehearsal of how you get the tones right, so that in past it's often been at the last minute when people have been given the reference that they need for that, and really the quality of what we've done has not been quite the thing that we were trying to do, just because there hadn't been time for people to get comfortable with the toning. I mean, by all means continue to have your paper, but get real comfy, get a rhythm moving inside yourself when you're doing that, because that's where the power is. All right, that's all.
There will be a point where, if we can, we will do the toning out loud of the tribe names while we're in the stand positions. But again, that depends on what the guides are like at the place, whether or not we'll get ourselves kicked out quickly if we start to look like we're doing anything like a stand. And if not, even if we know our tribe name, we can repeat it mentally in our head. And we will, come hell or high water, even if we have to do it all in silence, sitting with our little papers on our lap in the stand position. When we get up to leave, we will give them one good Maharata song on the way out, even if they don't want to hear it. Right? Oh yeah, and I'll tell you now, because they just let me know about it. It's not on the papers, as far as like the paperwork is the whole technique run that you could use at home or at any time. It's also what we happen to be using for the grid work. But with the grid work, once we get done, be it out loud or not, if we don't have time to say this tomorrow, there will be, you know how we did the 6 breaths afterward to run it into the grids? We'll be doing that after this, even if we're just reading it to ourselves. But there'll be a cycle of 6 of them. All right, 6 breaths, and then pause, and then another cycle of 6, and then pause, and another cycle of 6. This will make more sense Friday when we get into a certain type of breathing that we're going to learn how to do once the pillar can go up and down, that has to do with the 6 cycles, which are really 8 cycles. They're really 8 breaths, but there's only 6 of them that you take. The other 2 kind of, they go into Tharo and Thalan and reset. stuff. So there's more on that. But tomorrow we will do, instead of just 6 breaths at the end, the 6 fast ones, there'll be 6 fast ones, a pause, 6 more fast ones. We'll do it 6 times. And then give him the Maharata and run. No. Hopefully it will be peaceful where we could actually do the whole thing out loud, which would be, you know, even better. But if we can't, it still works, even incognito. Yeah. So I think we're done. And just thank you all for being here with us. This is such a, there's not even words to describe what this is in relation to Earth's history. It's the most amazing times we're in. And to share this with you and to have you share this with us and the beloveds, they're just so joyful to have us here to be able to do this with. Because they could have done this on their own. It would have been a lot more shaky down here. The planet wouldn't have been as stable with these activations by far. But to have us here, they have so much love for us, particularly the Adonai, because it's been a very long time since they've been able to connect with many of us. Many of us are them. And when the gates closed between the two sides, it's been a long time since they were open. So now it's like a real family reunion. And the part of the earth is rejoicing now too. It's going to breathe for the first time. It's as if somebody had exhaled and started to inhale, and somebody went, and it couldn't breathe anymore. It couldn't exhale. It couldn't inhale. It's going to start, the planet, the parts of the grids that can breathe, are going to start breathing for the first time Friday, and that's just monumental. I hope they make it like an Iani holiday or something, because it's just like so monumental. It might be local, but it's still, you know, real important as far as local planetary. Anyway, hope you have a good dinner, and we'll see you tomorrow, and thank you for being with us.
The beginning of a particular song which will eventually help to activate those frequencies for people. Okay, so it's very, very simple. Some of you have heard it already. It is really just, at this point, it's not really for general release as such, like it won't be put on the site for a while. So if you learn it, it's not really to be spread too widely yet, okay, until we get the full song. But it's very simple. So I sing it, and when you get the feel of it, join in. And you all know the words. Le etore ithwa. Duet a niwa, you all know that one. And then the other one is actually on that. Le edore shale edoni edone. Okay? And for me anyway, it symbolizes like the uniting of those twin flames of this this universe and then the parallel. And it came out, it sort of came to me just after Long Beach. And I think a lot of people at that time were actually going issues around twin flame energies. So it seemed to me that that's like within ourselves, integrating the twin within ourselves. So that was just my feeling of it. Okay? All right, so anyway, you can join in any time. Okay, there's a troublemaker down there, so just keep an eye on her. Troublemaker, yes, indeed. Watch that space. Okay. So I'm trying to... Let ithwa duete niwa Le dorium shale edoni edone. So we'll sing it a few times at that pace, and then we can speed it up, okay? Le ithwa duete niwa Le dorium shale edoni edone. Let ithwa duete niwa Le dorium shale edoni edone. Let ithwa duete niwa Le dorium shale edoni edone. So we sing it a bit quicker, just a few more times. And it'd be just interesting to hear any impressions, especially if you haven't heard it already. If you get any impression with it, and I'll just tell you then what I was told about it so far. Okay? Let ithwa duete niwa Le dorium shale edoni edone. Letore ithwa duete niwa, Letore shale edoni edone. Letore ithwa duete niwa, Letore shale edoni edone. Okay, so we can maybe just do some of our other songs and then come back to it and just see what impression you get from that. Okay, so we do the Maharaja? Yeah. Okay, all right. So we just go through some of the usual songs. Okay, so Maharata kumbai vektu samor shelia in evo kayun ibli by vektai Maha by vektai unore or namur Iste unte isa trashta hehera Patate uma ashelum taeja intadore Shaddai akuntan akuntan Shaddai akuntan akuntan Shaddai akuntan. If anybody else wants to come up, feel free. Okay. Does it do Kamadohati? Yeah. Yes, if you what? You do Kamadohati. You hold it. Do you want to hold it? You hold it.
I'll hold it. You drop it.
I will drop it.
Also, we can hear it. There.
Fuzzy.
You hold it.
Oh, God.
Start. I'm having a mental block again. I'm in my gap. Oh, yeah. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3. Once was a night of a faraway dream. Once was a night when the candle fire burned. Once was a night when the nightingale sang. Once on this night worlds were born. Once on a day when the sun shone its brightest. Once on a day when the breezes rose high. Once on a day when the rivers flowed with sorrow. Once on this day worlds were gone. But today in this moment in the heat of the fire burns a long aching dream of life returned from the pyre. Oh, come near, new life reborn. Come, come, rise from the waters. Come, come, rise from the sea. Reach forth, heart of the lion ringing out from the ancient lands of destiny. Once were a peoples pure and of innocence. Once were a peoples loving and free. Once were a peoples alive with eternal light. Once were a peoples the higher lay in victory. Once came a wind dark and cold from the lonely places. Once came the scorn of the dark fallen sun. Once when the rays of the demons spread suffering. Once stricken the higher lay were done. But today in this moment in the warmth of the sun rise along hidden peoples of the gold and silver one. Oh, come near, Haile reborn. Come, come, rise from the dreamlands. Come, come, rise from memory. Reach forth, children of the higher lake. Camelot awaits thee where the golden portals call. Now in a dream over worlds that had gone away. Now in a dream waking forth to the dawn. Here in this dream reaching forth to the universe and call to the ports of our home. Come, come. Az is going to be down in about 10 minutes to do one of the most powerful techniques that we have got to date. As she's coming through, I'm watching her, and her hair on her body is standing up straight. I kid you not, it rocks. So I was reading through the technique to see how we have to prep the room. So at one point we're going to be sitting for about 7 or 8 steps. At another point we're going to be standing up as part of the technique, and then bending down, touching our feet. And then from that we are going to go into the locus movements, 3 sets. So we're going to need the room to be able to accommodate that. So we're going to have to spread out, perhaps move some chairs, perhaps move the tables in the back to get as much room as possible to allow this technique to happen and flow smoothly. So we've got the next 10 minutes to do that. So as some of the gentlemen...
Anyway, before I forget my Iani manners, which I did earlier a little bit, because I was feeling a bit frazzed for us. Yesterday, the focus that you brought to the stand that we did was absolutely superb. And I'm just saying thank you from me, and thank you from them, and thank you for all of us. You did a bloody great job. But as a prelude to the greater job you're going to do tonight. However, the way you approach the organization under stressful circumstances, as Tim so aptly observed, if we'd been made aware of the configuration of the actual location of the stand, we would have spent endless days gazing up our navels, wondering how on earth we could work it out. Having arrived, and with the kind of general approach to the planning and organization of it, and the collective focus that was just absolutely great, you just did everything right. You know, it was just a dream. It was wonderful, wonderful. Now then, phase 2. We're going to do phase 2. I'll give you a quick sense of where we're headed from here on out for the rest of the yesterday and tomorrow, or tonight and whatever you want. Phase 2 next. Similar format as before. Second set of logos, please, Jane. To finish that, we should be through with that by 12:30 latest. Whereupon you'll have the same 15-minute stillness and just be kind to yourself and all that thing. With all of the best will of the Ani in the world, at around 1:45, 12:30, 1:45, Ash will be able to give you a rundown on the technical components of all the things that we were doing yesterday, the things that we've been doing so far this evening, and the things that we're going to complete before we finish. That should run till about 1:30. Whereupon we will then begin to play with tiliar breathing, because we'll be ready and able to, which will lead us progressively to the whole pin pulling part. So there are 3 stages in the tiliar breathing that will be presented, and they will almost certainly be done in round table formation. And you'll be shown basically how to deal with the exhale, inhale, pause breath sequence, which is the first creation sequence, the out breath leading to the ultimate and eternal and forever lasting expansion and contraction process. So we will go through 3 stages, reaching, I think, the 3 sets of 636 tiliar breath sequences, which is as far as we're able to go at this time. Somewhere inside of there will be the bridge between that and the round table proper, where we will actually do spinning. We'll begin spinning counterclockwise, magnetic, and that will be the finale. We should be done by 2:30. We can't actually, we can't mount the stand as far as the directed timing we're being given much before 2 o'clock, around about 2 a.m. So I hope not more than 30 minutes more we'll be done with the actual mission that we're all here to do. So it's about, I'm telling you very gently, that it's something like 2:30 end to the whole reason for our being here, because as you're obviously aware, this is very much a Gridmaster's clinic and not the kind of long, lengthy, wordy, graphy kind of other kind of workshop. I mean, this is business as distinct from instruction, although it involves them both. All right, enough from me. I will do the same again. I will go through each of the stages of the technique before we run it. This is the phase 2. This is the Nadradon activation. Phase 2, activating the etheric lotus arc sets, arc breathing, and cycling the petal arcs. This is followed by the Loga postures, or the frequency breathing movements, which I sometimes prefer to think of them as being. And interesting. Janie, this involves 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. I thought that 7, 8, and 9 were following prior to the tiliar breathing, but this is being put in right here. I've just noticed it for the first time. So you have to move through the 6 postures, 4 through 9 inclusive, 3 times each, just as you were doing them before. But we'll wait and see what they're saying about where we're breathing from. So the opening of this is to take several natural breaths from the Nadraki at the feet point, followed by inhaling a 48-petal encrypted lotus from the Nadraki up to the Ra center at chakra 3, holding the breath for a moment, then exhaling forcefully, using the exhale to expand many rays of pale violet, silver, pink, Adore frequency outward and through the Ra center, observing the Ra center release a starburst flash of pale violet, silver, pink light. We'll next inhale into the lotus at the Ra center and down to the Ka center at chakra 2, holding at the top of the inhale that's breathing from the Ka center for a moment. We'll exhale that breath forcefully from the Ka center, using the exhale to expand many rays of pale golden silver Ettore frequency outward and through the Ka center at chakra 2, observing the Ka center release a starburst flash of pale golden silver Ettore light. Next we'll inhale from the Iumbi point, just below the navel, using the inhale breath to draw the Ra center and chakra 3 and the Ka center and chakra 2 together into a biveka fold within the ethos flame at the Iumbi. Having undertaken the inhale in that way at that location, we will exhale at the Iumbi and observe as chakras 2 and 3 expand back out of the Iumbi to their original positions, leaving a pale violet, silver, pink, and pale golden silver Ra and Ka crystal within the Iumbi ethos flame. And you will observe or intend that the 2 crystals are fused in a biveka fold. Next, you will inhale the biveka folded Ra Ka crystals from the Iumbi upward to the Azure and hold the inhale for a moment with the Ka Ra crystal at the Azure. You will then exhale forcefully on a 6-petal lotus axis from the Azure, observing as the Ka Ra crystal replicates into 6 Ka Ra crystals, each projecting outward along one of the 6 lotus projection lines, while the original Ka Ra crystal remains in the Azure. Having done that, you will inhale gently, drawing the 6 Ka Ra crystal replicas back along their 6-axis projection lines, back into merger with the ostensibly the 7th, the original Ka Ra crystal at the Azure. You'll want to notice that on the inhale, the 2 top diagonal axis lotus petal arcs and the 2 bottom diagonal lotus petal arcs begin to contract, moving toward the stationary upper and lower vertical petals. Everybody happy about that idea? Good. On full inhale into the azure, the diagonal petal arcs will have folded into the upper and lower vertical petals, leaving only the vertical axis upper and lower petal arcs remaining. And forgive me for being suggestive, but this is what flapping angelic wings is really about. No, I'm being serious. I'm not. I don't muck about during technique. Next is to exhale gently from the azure, using the exhale to push the 7 Kara crystals from the azure downward to the Nadra key at the feet point. Noticing that as you exhale, the 4 diagonal axis local petal arcs expand back or outward again to their original 45-degree diagonal axis. We follow that by gently inhaling from the Nadra key feet point, keeping the 7 Kara crystals stationed there, and breathe into the Nadra key, noticing that the 4 diagonal axis lotus petal arcs around you again contract with the inhale, folding into the 2 vertical petal arcs. From there, we'll be breathing gently from the Nadra key feet point directly, observing or intending that on each Nadra key inhale, the diagonal petal arcs contract into the vertical petal arcs, and on each exhale, the diagonal petal arcs again expand to their original 45-degree axis projection line or position. So it literally is a case of the arcs moving in and out on the breath, okay? There is an elementary pause at the end of this stage, which is for you to play with the Nadra key inhale, exhale, varying the speed of breathing while keeping the diagonal lotus petal arcs expanding and contracting in a synchronization with each exhale, inhale breath. This is called cycling the petal arcs, and you will be encouraged to sit just for 5 minutes or so, because of the relationship between completing the technique and moving into the logas. But to a maximum of 5 minutes, you'll be invited just to sit on and just practice the sense, the sense of the movement, of the folding in and out on the breath, okay? So you get to feel comfortable with the synchronization of the breath and either the idea or the intention or the visual connection with the movement of the petal arcs. Yes, Joe? I think if I understand the way you're thinking of it, just think of four two-dimensional lines. Just see it as a 6-pointed star, okay, with the 4 45-degree lines and the 2 verticals. And just see those lines closing and opening, right? Top and the bottom is becoming a 2-pointed star. Yeah, because the diagonals are folding into the vertical, central vertical current, literally. You're combining 2 things that have a relationship with each other, but you're creating a kind of a sense of confusion for yourself that isn't there. All you need to do is to remember the original 6-point axis of lotus breathing, right? And the 6-point axis comprises 1, as it were, facing up, 1, as it were, facing down, and 2 upward facing ones at 45 degrees, and 2 downward facing ones at 45 degrees, right? At this stage, we're dealing with those, right? And this is the action of expansion and contraction. This is to do with the pillar of power and opening the pillar of power, and ultimately pulling ethos frequency into the pillar. And that is part of the process of activating of the removal of the pin in the lower half. Okay? Later on, when we get beyond this particular gathering, we'll be doing the same kind of process again, working with the eros in the upper section of the pillar of power to remove the upper pin. All right? Now, the motion of the lotus breaths and the movement of the what we both refer to as the wings, right, is all you need to concern yourself with. And you intend that what's the word I want for this? What do you use when you actually want a fire to burn? What do the thing you use? Bellows, right. Think of it, if you want to, as a bellows action. Okay? Because you see, what the lotus petals are representing are a pair of lungs. And they're associated with different kinds of currents. Okay? The lower lungs, so to speak, are related directly to the ethos. The upper lungs are related to the eros, but they work in conjunction with each other. Ash has partly introduced the reason for that in the first presentation, the first workshop lecture, and when she comes in at whatever time it is, whatever time I said, I can't remember even, she will actually take you through those technical relationships once more. For the purpose of the technique, just think of those upper and lower 45-degree lines, two-dimensional lines, coming in on the breath and opening on the breath. Okay? Up and below. Yes. No, I'm not sure where you got the straight ones from, hon. There is only, look, let me just put your mind at peace. Just listen to me and focus on this. A 6-petal lotus is 2 vertical lines, 4 45-degree diagonals. There is no horizontal line in the 6-petal lotus. Okay? Count them. 1 vertical, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm frequently mistaken, but rarely wrong. So can we go now? You going to be okay? Shall I come and sit with you? Shall I do it for you? I'll project it over if you want me to. I'm teasing you. I'm a wicked old Eckhart prune. No. Don't get all muddly up about that right now, okay? I just want to feel good about you seeing your wings go for the first time in ages, right? And do that by just taking the simple 2-dimensional picture I've given you, right? Okay? And when we get to that bit, just remember, I'll go as said, just do these ones, all right? Just trust me. Good. Did I pass? Nearly, as usual. All right, ready to go? All right. Do you know, people are paying money to see this. When we've done this stage, Joe, right, we will be energetically prepared to complete and consolidate this technique by utilizing the logas and the relationship with the parts of the biological etheric interface, right? When we go through motions 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, what we'll be doing is we'll actually be consolidating energetically the effects of the technique. Okay? Oh, and when we finish with 7, 8, 9, we'll be doing some more technique. Yes. You're right. Just go with the flow. You know, I mean, somebody around here knows what they're doing. So if you just follow what we're doing here, and the next step... No, I'll be a clown for you, no problem. When we finish doing this one, right, we will do the logos, which is the physical bit that you're talking about, and that'll be fine. And when we get there, and we're all safe and sound, then we'll stop and we'll have a rest, and then we'll go through this kind of palaver over again, and we'll do another technique, and then we'll probably get to a round table at the time that the Yanni needs us to do it, which is at 2 o'clock. They want us to be doing the stand at 2, right? Part of the reason why all this jiggery pokery is going on from our side of it, so to speak, is because they're actually pacing the introduction. the techniques that we're doing are actually being run on celestial time, if you want to think of it that way. All right, we're running in windows that no one's making a kind of a fuss about, but we both know, and they know, that we're being set up. But we're being set up in the best possible way, according to my understanding, right? So we better hurry up, because we might finish up with our leg in our elbow or some other place like that. Right, Nadradun activation. Phase 2. Activating Joe's etheric lotus arc sets, arc breathing, and cycling the petal arcs. Now it's time to be serious. Step 1, dear ones, just breathe easy for a minute now and just come into focus. It's nice to have a chuckle, and it's nice to play. But here's business. Take several natural breaths from the Nadra key at the feet point. Just breathe easy. Bring your attention into the place we call the Nadra key, exactly midpoint between the feet. And just breathe from that point. And if it helps at all, in a second we're going to inhale one of these 48 petal encrypted lotuses, including the emerald crystal, from the Nadra key up to the Ra center. So if you want to focus on the code just for a couple of seconds, we will take an inhale now of the 48 petal encrypted lotus and emerald crystal from the Nadra key up to the Ra center at chakra 3. We'll hold this breath for a moment. Just build charge a little. In a second we're going to exhale this breath forcefully, and we'll use the breath to expand many rays of pale violet, silver, pink, Adder ray frequency outward and through the Ra center. So when you're ready, let it go forcefully, and as you do, observe the Ra center releases a starburst flash of pale violet, silver, pink light, and intend that it does this if you can't visualize it. Now with your attention focused on the lotus at the Ra center, inhale, and use the inhale to draw the lotus down to the Ka center at chakra 2, and hold at the top of the inhale at the Ka center for a moment. Now when we let this breath go, we'll do it forcefully from within the center of the Ka center. We'll use the exhale to expand many rays of pale golden silver Ettore frequency outward and through the Ka center at chakra 2. So let it go when you're ready, and observe the Ka center release a starburst flash of pale golden silver Ettore light. Just breathe easy for a moment or two. And then our next step, the next thing we'll do is we'll inhale next from the Iumbi point, just an inch or two below the navel, and we'll use the inhale to draw the Ra center itself and chakra 3 itself and the Ka center and chakra 2 itself together, all together, into a Biveka fold within the Eros flame at the Iumbi. So on the next inhale you will draw the Ra center, chakra 3, the Ka center and chakra 2 together into a Biveka fold within the ethos flame at the Iumbi. Just hold momentarily, and you will exhale this breath at the Iumbi, and you will observe or intend as chakras 2 and 3 expand back out of the Iumbi to their original positions, leaving a pale violet, silver, pink, and pale golden silver Ra and Ka crystal within the Iumbi ethos flame. So when you're ready, exhale, allowing chakras 2 and 3 to expand back out of the Iumbi, leaving a pale violet, silver, pink, and pale golden silver Ra and Ka crystal within the Iumbi ethos flame. Observe or notice or intend that these two crystals are fused together in a Biveka fold. Now next we'll inhale these two crystals in a Biveka fold, a fused Biveka fold. We will inhale them from the Iumbi upward to the Azure and hold the inhale there for a moment, with the Ka-Ra crystal at the Azure. So inhale the Biveka folded Ra-Ka crystals from the Iombi up to the Azure and hold the breath there for a moment with the Ka-Ra crystals at the Azure, and intend that they're there. In a second, we'll exhale forcefully on a 6-petal lotus axis from the Azure, observing or intending the Ka-Ra crystals replicate into 6 separate Ka-Ra crystals, each moving outward along one of the 6 lotus projection lines, while the original one remains in the Azure. So exhale forcefully, move the crystals out on the 6 axes, leaving the original in the center of the Azure. And then just inhale gently, drawing each of these 6 Ka-Ra crystal replicas back along their 6-axis projection lines, back into merger with the original, the 7th Ka-Ra crystal at the Azure. Notice, if you can, on the inhale, or intend it, that the 2 top diagonal axis lotus petal arcs and the 2 bottom diagonal axis lotus petal arcs begin to contract. So on the inhale, these 45-degree angled axes are contracting. They're moving in to the vertical alignment. Okay? On full inhale into the Azure, the diagonal petal arcs have folded into the upper and lower vertical petals, leaving only the vertical axis upper and lower petal arcs remaining. So in your mind's eye, all you can see is one slightly expanded central vertical current. The petal arcs aren't sticking out anymore. Exhale gently from the Azure, using the exhale to push the 7 Ka-Ra crystals from the Azure downward to the Nadra key at the feet point. And notice that as you exhale, the 4 diagonal axis lotus petal arcs expand back to their original positions on a 45-degree axis. Now inhale gently from the Nadra key feet point, keeping the 7 Ka-Ra crystals stationed there in the Nadra key point. And breathe into the Nadra key, noticing that the 4 diagonal axis lotus petal arcs around you again contract with the inhale breath, folding into the 2 vertical petal arcs. So inhale, and the petals fold up into a completely vertical upward facing and vertical downward facing line in the center of vertical current. Exhale the diagonal petal arcs again, and notice or intend that they open and resume their 45-degree axis projection line. Now for the next 5 minutes, with your eyes closed, remain with this focus. Inhale, and see the lotus petals fold up and form one central vertical alignment. And as you exhale, these 4 petals unfold from their vertical alignment and move back to their 45-degree axis. So once again, you can see a 6-point lotus axis. Inhale, and the petal arcs fold in to form one unified column. Now it's important, continue please, it's important because of what is coming, that for the next 2 or 3 minutes you get to feel very comfortable and very confident about this relationship, very important relationship. This is the beginning of Tiliya breathing. Later on this evening you'll be asked to do multiples of the inhale, exhale, pause sequence rapidly. The round that we're going to do is based entirely on this breathing pattern. And it's important that your awareness, energetically speaking, is in sync with the movement of the lotus petals. There are important reasons for this, which will be explained in the prelude to the round table itself. Okay, just continue for literally 1 more minute, and then Jane will again come and do a sterling job of guiding you through the Logos. Just to repeat, you will do 3 repetitions or 3 sets of each of 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9, and this time, while you're moving through these frequency breathing movements, the breathing pattern that you're using now needs to continue all the way through. So don't leave it, stay with it from now. And really, what I suggest, as I did before, is allow yourself to breathe in a relaxed way. It's far easier and better for you to project a visual idea, intention or image of what the lotus petal arcs are doing. So all you have to do is to have this little toy town picture in your mind, if that's what it is, of the arcs closing and opening, closing and opening. All you have to do is to make sure they're synchronized. Closing on the inhale, opening when you breathe out. And just remind yourself, just direct your brain so that you're keeping the connection between the two. Really, that's all you're being asked to do. But